welcome you live to Darlington International Raceway. We're inside the number 4 Kodak sponsor car driven by Rick Wilson, and we're set to go in the 37th annual Southern 500. The threat of rain is causing an early start of this race. The lineup on the front row will be Tim Richmond in the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet car number 25. Outside of the front row will be Jeff Bodine in the number 5 Levi Garrett Chevrolet. In the second row will be Neil Bonnet in the number 12 Budweiser Chevrolet, and Harry Gant driving the Skoal Bandit car number 33. Row number 3 has the number 88 Briscoe Oldsmobile driven by Buddy Baker. Alongside will be the Miller American Buick driven by Bobby Hillen Jr. In row number 4, it's Terry Labonte in the number 44 Piedmont Airlines Oldsmobile, alongside the Hardee's Ford number 28 driven by K.O. Yarborough. In row number 5, the Copenhagen Oldsmobile number 55 driven by Benny Parsons. Starting alongside in row number 5, the Budweiser Chevrolet driven by Darrell Waltrip. The 6th row has Bobby Allison and Rick Wilson. In row number 7, it's Sterling Marlin and Bill Elliott. Row number 8, Ricky Rudd and Rusty Wallace. In the 9th row, Phil Parsons in 66 and Joe Ruttman in 26. Row number 10, Richard Petty in number 43 and Morgan Shepherd in 47. In the 11th row, it's Dale Earnhardt in number 3 and Jim Sauter in 75. The 12th row, Alan Kulwicki in car 35 and Kyle Petty in number 7. The 13th row, number 71, Dave Marcus, and 98, Ron Bouchard. Row number 14, Mike Waltrip in number 23 and Eddie Bierschwald in number 17. In the 15th row, it's Chet Phillip in 81 and Donnie Allison in 54. The 16th row consists of D.K. Ulrich in number 6 and Ken Schrader in 90. Row number 17, it's J.D. McDuffie and Connie Saylor. The 18th row, H.B. Bailey and Jimmy Means. Row number 19, Buddy Arrington and Jonathan Edwards. And in row number 20, Mark Stahl and James Hilton. I'm Bob Jenkins in the booth, Jack Arute in the pit area, Jerry Punch and Dick Berggren as we get set for coverage of the 37th annual Southern 500. The weather has not been kind to us all weekend here. Yesterday, we had the Grand National race postponed because of rain. It was raining hard at our hotel this morning, but when we got to the racetrack, it had not been raining, and it looked very, very promising. However, we have had a few sprinkles reported on pit road just in the last 10 minutes. We go inside once again, the Rick Wilson car, as he prepares for a start. We have been told that they'll go at least one more lap before we get the green.
And Bob, let's take a look at the other in-car camera. That'll be driven by Rusty Wallace in the Alugard special, number 27 from the Raymond Beadle stable. Now they're both mired back in the middle of this 42-car field with one lap to go before we green flag race it. Now, one thing to remember, starting back in 21st position is Dale Earnhardt. He had a problem during his qualifying attempt. They repaired the car, brought it back here at 7 o'clock the following day, but he had to qualify the second day, so he's going to have to carve his way to the front.
Quick comment before the start of the race from Dick Berggren.
Well, Bob, most everybody is working on a chassis setup and an engine combination that's untested. There was no practice yesterday. They had all counted on it. Even the pole sitter's got a chassis setup and an engine combination he hasn't tried. So when this green flag drops, nobody really knows what these cars are going to do when they go into the first corner.
The number 92 car driven by Jonathan Edwards has still not started, and there is some question as to whether he will be able to join the field for the start of this event. The light on top of the pace car is out, indicating that this time around we should get the green flag and begin the Southern 500. 367 laps of racing on this 1.366 mile oval. Here comes the field off of corner number 4. And the green flag is out. The Southern 500 underway from Darlington, South Carolina. We're glad you could be with us on this Sunday afternoon. It's a very narrow racetrack. Tim Richmond has grabbed the lead. Neil Bonnet second. Jeff Bodine is third, but Bodine moves alongside Neil Bonnet at the end of the backstretch, and Bodine puts himself in second place. Bodine second. Neil Bonnet is third. They come off of corner number 4 and complete lap number 1.
You get a good idea, Bob, of just the kind of respect that these drivers have for the lady in black or the track too tough to tame. Already with just one lap in the record books, they've formed a single file snake all the way around the racetrack. They will pick and choose where they'll pass here.
Well, there has been so much rain in the past 48 hours that all of the rubber that had been laid down in practice and qualifying is gone. So it's a green racetrack they're racing on. Combine that with the fact that Darlington is so demanding anyway on a driver, and I think we're going to see some caution taken here in the opening laps. Just drivers settling back, seeing what their car is going to do, waiting for the track to come in.
Take, for instance, Tim Richmond. We alluded to the fact that they didn't have a last practice session, and Richmond's crew dropped a new engine in that car, and they are a little bit concerned because they didn't get a chance to shake it down even to just make sure that all the hose fittings were tight. But now it looks like Bodine, his teammate, is going to close up on the rear bumper.
And the car that is being lapped here in the early going is Jonathan Edwards in car number 92. So the Rick Hendrick team running first and second, just like they started. Tim Richmond, the pole sitter, is the leader. And Jeff Bodine, who started outside of row number 1, is running in second position right on the rear bumper of Tim Richmond. This will complete lap number 4 when they cross the stripe. Richmond and Bodine, followed by Neil Bonnet, then Harry Gant, then Buddy Baker, Terry Labonte, Bobby Hillen Jr., Cale Yarborough, Benny Parsons, Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip, and Sterling Marlin.
These front two cars have pulled away to about a 2-second separation over third place, and it looks to me like Tim Richmond just gets into turn 3 a tad better than Bodine. Bodine, however, seems to be able to close up as he exits turn 4.
Rusty Wallace running back in 17th position. There is the view from inside that Al-Ugard Pontiac. And we have a crash. It's Richard Petty on the main straightaway. Petty bangs the wall right at the start-finish line, and the car comes to a halt. That's where we've seen most of the accidents in yesterday's Grand National race that was suspended just almost near the halfway point. And now Richard Petty tastes the concrete here at Darlington. The car just beyond the start-finish line. And the yellow flag comes out.
And you can see Petty conversing with his crew chief, Dale Lidman, to let him know that he was okay. He's beginning to unhitch the seat belts and the shoulder harness, but he will sit inside that race car. Not that he's hurt or anything, but waiting for the rest of the field to go by and let the safety crew come to his assistance.
And a replay of the accident. Again, trouble erupting just out of corner number 4.
There you saw Petty on the high side. It looks like he just got crossed up and bang. Got eaten by the concrete right at the start-finish line. He keeps the wheels cocked, stays off the brake, and he just comes to rest.
Those dark spots there on the very inside of the racetrack are wet spots, but the groove itself, the area of the racetrack that they use for racing, is completely dry. There's no problem in that respect. Well, the STP Pontiac is started once again, and Richard Petty will limp to his pit area. Well, they will try to straighten out the body work and get Richard back into this event. The Southern 500 from Darlington, South Carolina. We'll be right back. Under yellow on lap number 7 here at Darlington because of an accident on the main straightaway involving Richard Petty. The leader of the race is Tim Richmond. Jeff Bodine second. Buddy Baker is third. The number 12 car of Neil Bonnet is fourth, and Harry Gant is fifth. And those specks on the windshield, we're afraid to report to you, is rain.
Bob, rain is the biggest factor here all weekend. It seems to have reared its ugly head, and it's so unusual because Labor Day here at Darlington, especially in the PD area of South Carolina, is usually filled with a lot of sunshine. Now, the guys that have a lot of work ahead of them are right there. Richard Petty's crew trying to bend away all that sheet metal, and there's a mechanic's nightmare, if there's ever been one.
The STP Pontiac with damage in the front end and at the rear end of the car, but they'll work here in the next few minutes and get all the body work away from the wheels, and undoubtedly Richard Petty will be able to get back into this competition.
You know, one of the things we talked about, what a difference a year makes. Last year at this race, we were looking at a historic possibility that came to full fruition at the end in Victory Lane when Bill Elliott captured the Winston Million and became the first driver in American history to ever win a $1 million bonus. Well, the $1 million isn't up for grabs today as we continue to see Tim Richmond leading the pack here under caution. But there are 3 drivers that do have a shot at $100,000, a consolation prize of sorts. The winner of the Daytona 500. Of course, that was Jeff Bodine, who was running in the 2nd spot. Then, the winner of the Winston 500, Bobby Allison, and the winner of the World 600, of course, Dale Earnhardt. Should they be able to score a double, win here in the Southern 500, one of those 3 drivers, they'll receive a $100,000 bonus from the Winston people at R.J. Reynolds.
So the field is slowed under caution. Now, Tim Richmond, the leader of the race, is way out ahead of everybody else, including Jeff Bodine, who's running 2nd. The pace car has pulled ahead of Tim Richmond on the racetrack, but I'm not real sure whether Tim just got out to a real big lead or whether Jeff Bodine is sort of holding up everybody else's proceedings.
Well, Bob, what Tim Richmond is doing is actually he's taking care of business the way he's supposed to. He's right behind the pace car, the safety car. So it's really Bodine, in my estimation, that hasn't caught up with the rest of the field yet.
We'll try to talk to Bobby Allison here on our in-car radio. Bobby Allison, this is Bob Jenkins up in the ESPN booth. Do you read us?
Yeah, Bob, I hear you.
Bobby, Richard Petty in a bit of a slide down the main straightaway into the wall here in the early going. Is the racetrack pretty green?
Well, the track's a little green, but unfortunately, Bob, it began to rain lightly at the end of the back straightaway and into turn 3. And the caution period, I think, has contributed to the wetness of the track over there. While I'm right here, I need to say hi to Mac Robinson, who's recuperating from a neck injury. He's a spiritual member of our team, but we'll get back to racing now.
All right, Bobby, we'll be talking with you throughout the race. Good luck to you. Yellow light still on top of the pace car. Jerry Punch, our other pit reporter for the activity here this afternoon. Here's Jerry with Richard Petty.
Richard has climbed out of the STP Pontiac. Richard, first of all, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
What happened out there?
Anytime you get close to racing with Earnhardt, you're in trouble, and I wasn't smart enough to get out as well.
Well, Richard Petty's STP Pontiac mangled. He climbs out of it, makes a short exit of today's Southern 500.
We have a bit of an explanation as to what is going on the racetrack. Apparently, the drivers were given the signal that we would be going green, but there was a bit of an in-car protest from most of the drivers saying it isn't safe to go green. We're going to hold up the proceedings here and not get up to racing speed. So the rain is falling, or at least sprinkles, and causing us to remain under caution here at Darlington. So 11 laps have been completed. There are the top 5, and we'll be back with more right after this. We are told that they'll go back to green in 2 more laps. There's Harold Kinder, the NASCAR flagman, holding up 2 fingers. 2 more laps, and green flag conditions will prevail here at the Southern 500 for the first time in about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And Rusty Wallace, carrying one of our in-car cameras, comes into the pits once again.
Let's see what they're going to do to Rusty Wallace's car. It looks like maybe they're just going to top off the gas tank. They're looking at the tires on the right side. One crew member was changing the windshield. That's indeed all they did, was add a little fuel.
Now, Rusty is on the lead lap. Only one car of the 39 restarting is not on the lead lap, and that is the number 92 machine of Jonathan Edwards, who had trouble getting started initially back around the 1 o'clock hour and was lapped in the early going. 38 cars on the lead lap. Rusty Wallace pulling back out onto the racetrack.
Now take a look at how Rusty Wallace tries to get back in the line. He's made a pit stop so he can't go to the front, and it's a down finger restart, so he's relegated right to shotgun on the field at the tail end. But he's caught up with the tail end of the field, and now he wants to keep the revs up and get ready. Remember, you can get a good look at just how bumpy a ride you can get in one of these stiffly suspended cars as you tour this old lady in the black.
All right, there is Tim Richmond, followed by Jeff Bodine, Buddy Baker, and Neil Bonnet. your first 4 positions. In 5th is Gant, 6th Labonte, 7th is Bobby Hillen Jr. They're on the backstretch and will go green when they come down and cross the start-finish line. And we will have completed 25 laps at that point.
Richmond gets to call the shots from here. He gets to see the flag first. He'll determine the speed as they come down to take the restart.
Pace car is pulling off of the racetrack. Here comes the field off of the 4th corner. Looking for speed for the first time in a long time, it seems. There's the green flag. Racing conditions once again at the Southern 500. They go 3 abreast coming down the main straightaway as some of the faster cars go low and pass the slower cars.
And one of them was Dale Earnhardt. He picked up 3 spots on that restart. A good move by Earnhardt.
Tim Richmond leads them down the backstretch once again, pulling out to about a 5 or 6 car length advantage on his teammate Jeff Bodine. This is how they started the race, with Richmond in the pole position and Bodine to the outside. And here they are. Track appears to be in good shape as the leaders are able to move up to some high speeds here. Jeff Bodine moves in on the leader.
The track is in excellent shape, and you can see it. It's indicative of the way Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine are beginning to pull away. They're running right out on the ragged edge in that real high-speed groove. Bodine looks to the inside across the stripe, but he's not going to make a move at all.
It looks as if Jeff Bodine may want to lead. This is what happened on the restart.
Going to the inside of Bill Elliott. He loses it just a little bit. Earnhardt gets into Elliott. Elliott gathers it back in. They come across the stripe. That's part of racing at Darlington.
Nice job of driving by both Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt, saving their cars. It looked like they may have lost control and crashed, but both gathered it in. Now the Hendrick cars beginning to move away from the rest of the field as Buddy Baker runs in 3rd position, but he is already about a half a straightaway behind the number 5 Levi Garrett Chevrolet, driven by Jeff Bodine. Rick Wilson looking a little bit squirrely there in the 3rd turn as Morgan Shepherd is moving up nicely. He went to the inside of Joe Ruttman and picked up a spot. Now Earnhardt looking once again to the inside of Rick Wilson, but has to back off.
Typical sparring match. You can see the hands being sawed back and forth by Dale Earnhardt. He's really working that car, trying to look for a slight advantage to get around, because he looks in his rearview mirror and he sees Morgan Shepherd, one tough customer himself.
Just some excellent pictures from that Kodak Oldsmobile. Now Earnhardt once again cannot get it done.
You have got to be careful where you pick your place to pass here at Darlington Raceway. You just can't stick your nose out at, let's say, like a place like Talladega or Michigan. You've got to just pick it, stab it, and go for it. That's why you see in the picture here, the cars seem to come up real close, then back off. Now Earnhardt goes to the inside. He's going to try it one more time, coming out of the corner.
He's going to do it this time, and Morgan Shepherd comes right behind him. And crash in turn 2 is Chet Phillip. Phillip hitting the wall at corner number 2 and scattering a lot of debris. Everybody scrambles to miss him. They do. Phillip's car is still under power. He pulls into the apron of the racetrack and gets headed in the right direction once again. But debris on the track will cause our first caution of the day.
And one would think that all of the leaders will come into the pits during this caution, be able to top off for fuel, get some input as to what the track conditions are now, and you can see the damage that's been done to Chet Phillips' circle bar truck corral car. It's pretty well dinged in the front, and they're pitting on the backstretch, so he had a very short trip to his pit area.
Chet was one of only 2 drivers that participated in the rookie program. Rookies are required to undergo a program, take some lessons from the more experienced drivers. Chet Phillip and Jonathan Edwards were the only 2 to participate in that. They are starting their first Darlington event here this afternoon. And Harry Gant heads into the pits in number 33.
Gant locks it up, trying to find his pits there, just sliding through. And there was a good indication of what Bobby Allison told us. Everybody was going to take it easy. Neil Bonnet also in, taking on right side tires. They dropped the jack. Now let's see if they're going to go for 4 tires. Yes, they do. Now you see that move? The Jackman went around, got in position, and Tim Brewer was changing that front tire, waited for the Jackman to go around him before he went and attacked that front tire.
Also a couple of other cars on pit road as we watch Neil Bonnet pull out. Sterling Marlin and Joe Rutman both on pit road with their hoods up. There is Harry Gant with his hood up.
And that does not look good for Harry Gant. You don't want to go beneath the hood this early in a race.
Gant had very high hopes of doing well in this race. He qualified 4th fastest, but it looks as if he has a problem with that car. We'll be right back in a moment to Darlington. Back at Darlington International Raceway, where the yellow remains out because of the crash involving Chet Phillip over in car number 2, in turn number 2.
Well, so far, some unexpected, but some expected things. We saw the pole and outside pole sitter rumble to the front here. We've had the red flag delay, but it looks like, you know, Richmond and Bodine are still the class of the field, at least in the early going.
That is the indication, and also the indication is that we're going green once again this next time around.
There's a good look from inside Rusty Wallace's car as they start to come up through the gearbox, anticipating that restart all the way there in turns 1 and 2. Wallace at the tail end of the pack, and he's got to be not caught asleep because he's going to try and take some positions on this restart.
A couple of cars have gone behind the wall. Harry Gant and Joe Rutman are both behind the wall because of mechanical problems, and the hood is up on the Sterling Marlin machine number 1 in the pit area.
Well, that's disappointing for the Bullseye crew. You know, they finished 4th at Talladega, and they had high hopes for here.
Here comes Richmond, leading them down once again for a green flag restart. Two abreast on the main straightaway, but everybody filing into single file formation going into turn number 1. The narrow race groove here at Darlington necessitates that. Now they're on the backstretch, and still Tim Richmond, the number 25 Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, leading Jeff Bodine and Buddy Baker. Tim Richmond qualified for this race at 158.489 miles an hour, about a mile an hour faster than his teammate Jeff Bodine, who was second place. Car running very slowly on the inside of the racetrack. You got a shot of it there on the main straightaway with Mark Stahl in car number 82. Now once again, Jeff Bodine makes a bid for that lead as they go down into the backstretch and into turn number 3.
He took a look and then thought better of it. And really, there's no real reason to have to go out and battle right now for the front position. He's flew right to the rear bumper of Richmond. A good indication that he's just as fast as Tim. They pulled away just a little bit from Buddy Baker in third. So what Bodine will do is just move to the inside, take a look, see what's ahead of him, and then stay right behind his teammate Tim.
There you can see how close they are, separated by just a few inches as they race down the backstretch once again. But Richmond holding on to that top spot here in the early going of the Southern 500, delayed by more than 2 hours and 15 minutes because of rain. But the weather doesn't look too bad right now. Skies are still overcast, but it has not rained now in about an hour.
And the track conditions are very conducive right now to some good, strong, high-speed racing. The dampness that was on the racetrack, most of it has disappeared. The majority of it now is down on the inside where you don't race anyway. Sure, it's 80 feet wide, but there's only about 35 feet that you use for the racing group here.
Let's go down to Nick Berggren, who is with apparently an early retiree from the race here again.
Well, Bobby, something could not be a retiree. This was the distributor cap that was on the car. That side looks fine, but that's how Harry Gant came in. This thing was broken directly in half. And they're working on the car right beside me now, trying to get the car back together again. There's about 7 mechanics with their hands underneath this hood, and Gant hopes to go back. Right now, Jerry Punch is up pit road, and he's with Joe Rutman.
Well, Dick, we're in the garage area, and Joe Rutman's the second car to retire. Joe, what puts you out?
Well, we have water run out the exhaust, which indicates that we probably got a cracked head. And, you know, obviously there's not much way of, repairing that kind of a problem.
Sorry to see you out of it.
continues on the Winston Cup Trail. He is the second car to drop out of competition in the Southern 500, the first being Richard Petty. On the racetrack with 41 laps completed, it's still a battle between Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine.
I'll tell you, while we watch Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine begin to pull away from your third-place runner, there is one whale of a battle going on behind him for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th positions. Dale Yarbrough in fifth to the head of your picture. Directly behind him is Bobby Hillin Jr. Then, right in the back of that package, you see him there going beneath the sign, is Bill Elliott. Elliott is on the move. He set his sights now on Darrell Waltrip. He has begun to show the muscle that $1 Million Bill exhibited last year in his run for the million.
5 cars running right together on the racetrack here. Bringing up the tail at the moment is Bill Elliott, but he has moved to 9th place after starting in 14th position. But the real battle and the best one is still up front. The teammates, Richmond and Bodine, going at it. At the moment, Bodine content, it appears, to remain in 2nd position, letting his teammate Richmond set the pace.
When you look at the nature of these two drivers, that's exactly the way they should run. Richmond is the flamboyant one that likes to get out front and lead. Bodine a little more calculating. He'd rather just save maybe a couple of cards in his hand till later. Again, he shows just to the inside. He feints that move, but you never really see him load the cannon and try and go after it. He just peeks and sneaks a peek to the inside and then goes back behind that pole to start.
By the way, Dale Earnhardt has moved up to 12th position now from his 21st place start. Richmond and Bodine. Now Bodine once again sneaking right up on the back bumper. That number 25 car, they come down the straightaway. Slower car there. The inside is Jonathan Edwards, the number 92, but they get by him safely.
Now, from the looks of things, the way Tim Richmond is running, and he's here now in turns 1 and 2, but when he gets over to turn 3, it looks like possibly he has just a slight handling problem. Nothing to be real concerned about, but he'll point the nose downstairs. He'll try and get as low as possible there, and then the nose starts to run right up high up against the wall. That is usually indicative of a push with the race car. Bodine, on the other hand, seems a little more content and able to keep the car pointed down low.
Each time down the main straightaway, Jeff Bodine moves his car to the left and takes a look, but has not made a real indication that he wants to pass. Now watch the line they take going into turn number 3. Tim Richmond will move right down to that low stripe, and then the car swings high.
Well, now here's a little lap traffic there with Buddy Arrington, so you really didn't get a good look at what they call giving a car its head. Letting it go to the wall, just not trying to bind it up. But that's the technique that Richmond's using now. And here's the Bill Elliott, Darrell Waltrip, and Bobby Allison battle for 7th position. Allison's in 7th, Waltrip is in 8th, and Elliott is in 9th position. And downstairs on pit road with a story from the Elliott pit is Jerry Punch.
We're standing with older brother Dan Elliott, and Dan, Bill's starting to make his move. The car must feel pretty good to him.
There's no starting to make his move. He said the car was just really comfortable, and the engine was running good, which we didn't have any practice on it after we changed after qualifying. And he said he really liked the setup, so he said it was comfortable, and we're just going to ride.
There was a big question mark in that engine. He said they haven't run a single lap with a brand new engine. They were concerned about how strong the engine might be.
Yeah, it's really good if you get some practice time on the engine. Didn't have any oil leaks or any problems with it. We didn't have a chance to do that, and we just had to start cold turkey, so we're pretty happy right now.
Well, they're awfully confident here in the Elliott pit.
Well, Elliott's awfully confident right now, Bob. He's watching a heck of a battle between Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip's downstairs. He's looking for that 7th position.
And Waltrip falling in behind Bobby Allison here, choosing not to pass at the moment. Benny Parsons has fallen back now to 10th position, and there is Dale Earnhardt in 11th. So 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 here running nose to tail on the racetrack. A couple of cars have come back out onto the racetrack as Waltrip makes a bid to the inside of Allison, but can't pick up the spot. Both Harry Gant and Chet Phillip have come back out onto the racetrack. And there is Dale Earnhardt continuing to pick him off. He goes to the inside and passes Benny Parsons in turn 4.
Now compare this sparring for that 7th position between Allison and Waltrip to that we saw just moments ago between Richmond and Bodine.
Bodine would feign a move to the inside. Waltrip wants the position held by Bobby Allison. Watch as he takes a look to the inside. He tries to get his corner panel up to the doorpost. But Bobby Allison, that's a signal that, hey, the spot is mine. He didn't do it that time, but every other lap he's made that attempt, at least going into turn 3.
There you can see 50 laps completed in our 28-58 update with the latest baseball scores. Of course, there was an IndyCar race this afternoon at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. We'll have delayed same-day coverage of that at 8 o'clock tonight. There was an accident late in the race, what appeared to be a very serious accident involving Jose Legarza. Larry Newber will update us on that situation in just a few moments.
There, Allison held off Darrell Waltrip one more time going into 3. Waltrip tries to set him up coming out of 4. He's looking for that spot. You've got to pick your spot to make the pass. Not able to do it that time.
Let's go down to Jerry Punch in the pit area once again, who's with Richard Chilton.
Well, he's the car owner for Dale Earnhardt. Richard, are you concerned about how hard Dale's having to run the car early in the race?
No, we're just going to lose a whole lot of track position. We want to try to get back to third order race with the leaders, but he's being careful right now.
How is the track overall? Is the track drive pretty well and seem to be pretty tight with the car?
Yeah, we were a little tight. We're still a little bit tight. We're going to have to work with our tires on the next pit stop.
How about fuel mileage? Everything going as you planned?
Well, it's hard to tell until we pit. We didn't get a chance to run this thing in practice, so we don't know.
That's the story here in the Wrangler pit.
Side by side into turn 1. Door handle to door handle racing, and Darrell Waltrip picks up the spot, forcing Bobby Allison high, and here comes Bill Elliott right behind, and Dale Earnhardt is going to try to follow also before they get to turn 3. He can't get the job done, though, as the door is slammed by Bobby Allison. Now Earnhardt to the inside of Allison, and he picks up the spot.
That's how quick you can go from 7th to 10th here at Darlington. A good move by Waltrip. Benefiting from it was Elliott and Earnhardt. They did their homework as well.
So now in 7th position is Darrell Waltrip, 8th is Allison, 9th is Earnhardt, and 10th, Bobby Allison. Benny Parsons running right behind Allison. 55 laps have been completed, and the reason that we are only 55 laps into this race is because of a rain delay that we had. It started to rain just after the cars began this 367 lap event. It rained hard. They red flagged it, but we went back to racing, and now we are proceeding. We have a car smoking very badly, and a crash to the inside. There is the top of the car. We still can't get an indication of who it is, but the car did slide off of the racetrack and probably came into contact with that wall separating the track from the pit area.
That's how quick things can change here. Just that quickly coming hurtling out of turn 2. It looks like it would be Eddie Bierschwale's car, number 17, and that is a tough break for Bierschwale. But look at the windshield. It's popped right out of its position.
And they race back to the line. Here's the yellow flag displayed. Tim Richmond will maintain the lead, and a couple of cars trying to get their laps back there, but did not. That was the number 64 machine driven by Connie Saylor, who tried to get ahead of Richmond, but was unable to do so before the cars crossed the line.
Now, if the leaders should pit, let's watch and see what type of adjustments they make on their cars. We talked about the fact that from our perspective, it looked as if maybe Richmond was a tad tight going into this race. Let's see if one of his crew members, if he does bring the car into pit road, and he will, let's see if they make any sort of chassis adjustment. Look for either the front tire changer to go beneath before he pulls the wheel and puts the other one on to make an adjustment, or going in the back of the area, diving into the inside, the cockpit, to make an adjustment on what they call the 4 stacking bolts.
Let's go down to our pit reporters who are going to be able to call these pit stops by the leaders.
Jim Richmond brings the Folgers Chevrolet down to the leader, and Harry Hyde and the crew will go to work under caution. They should change 4 tires. They're cleaning the windshield with that big sponge to give Richmond something cold to drink. They have the car on the jacks on the right side. And the car number 5 also in the pit. That's Jeff Bodine, as you see both cars now in the pits. Now we'll go to the left side for Tim Richmond's left side tire change. The Folgers crew now getting all 4 tires, fresh rubber on the Chevrolet. It's been leading since the green flag struck. They have the car down off the jack. Pretty good pit stop, about 28.5 seconds for Tim Richmond.
And a great credit to all these drivers because that pit road is still very slick. In fact, there are still puddles, but everybody came in and didn't have a single problem.
And also, you notice that they didn't make any adjustments on the car. So the way they've solved their slight problem with what we call tire stagger. They've changed it just a little bit, and hopefully that'll make the car run that much better.
Richmond back out on the racetrack. Benny Parsons was the leader, but now he will come in and relinquish the lead. And so the standings are changing here as we're having our first series of pit stops in the Southern 500. 59 laps have been completed. 367 will make up this race. There was some damage showing there on the Benny Parsons car. Obviously, he's had contact with someone out there. From inside the Kodak machine, driven by Rick Wilson, we'll take this break and be back with more of the Southern 500. We are back to racing at Darlington, and what a race we've got going. Tim Richmond and Neil Bonnet are going at it tooth and nail. As a matter of fact, Bonnet...
And now Bodine tries the inside of Bonnet for that second position into 3.
Some great racing going on here now. Earnhardt looks to the inside of Bodine, trying to take away that third spot, and he does. Dale Earnhardt moves to third. Now Jeff Bodine has Terry Labonte to contend with. Labonte in that number 44 Piedmont Oldsmobile moving to the inside to crash on the main straightaway. Mike Waltrip and Bill Parsons are involved, and there may be others. Oh! Rick Wilson just missed, and so did Benny Parsons. Boy, that was close.
Boy, whew, closer than anybody would ever want to admit to. We talked about this track being 80 feet wide as we look at Phil Parsons get back into the gearbox and pull away from the scene of the altercation, as they would say. But once things start to break loose here out of the racing groove, everybody darts and dives, but you just don't have a lot of room. Now there's another car that was involved, Jim Sauter, pitting on the backstretch. He shows cosmetic damage to the outside, and Parsons is making his way around for service with his crew.
Boy, it was just inches that this car and this man right here, Rick Wilson, missed Bill Parsons, who was in the middle of the straightaway. Let's take a look at it again. It happened coming off of corner number 4, Parsons and Waltrip sideways here.
Now, the racetrack is blocked, the groove. Look at all the cars going to the inside, up against the retaining barrier. That yellow car wow, that was too close. Rick Wilson just threaded the needle, just a slight twitch of the wheel, and he got by.
And Benny Parsons also went right through the middle of everything and avoided it. And here is how it looked from Rusty Wallace's car as he scrambled to avoid.
Now, try and imagine you're going to get through all this. Thread the needle at still about 100 miles an hour. You go by Phil Parsons, you take a look real quick as to what's happening, you try to gather it back in, and you just go, phew.
He missed it, and so did Rick Wilson. But now the track is littered with debris, and the track crew will have to come out and pick up the pieces of sheet metal and fiberglass that were torn from those race cars. We're under yellow once again with 67 laps completed.
And boy, the way Tim Richmond was battling with Neil Bonnet there, Bob, one would have thought that maybe it was for the last 5 or 6 laps. Bonnet, as we said, had some real quick pit work, and he got out towards the head of the field. He took that lead on the drop of the green flag, and Tim Richmond just said, I'm going to have none of that, and just grabbed it right back away from Bonnet.
A couple of cars in the pit area. Bobby Allison has come in for a pit stop. Rick Wilson also stops, and now here comes Phil Parsons in.
There's a look as they've completed the service on the Kodak car. Now, he made it through all right, but you can see the tape that was on the windshield there. He's got a cracked windshield. He had that before the accident, of course.
We understand that Jim Sauter may have had contact with the wall up in turn number 4 to cause that accident here on the main straightaway. We'll be right back. race is back under green at Darlington, and Tim Richmond has the advantage once again, followed by Neil Bonnet and Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Bodine as they file into turn number 2 once again.
Now there is a Quinella right there. You've got Richmond on the point, flanked by Bonnet. Now Bodine looks to the inside of Earnhardt. He gets the spot and takes over third. But look at Earnhardt. Says, nothing doing, fella. I'm going to the inside. Downstairs in 3 and 4.
Battle for third here. Earnhardt gets it back. Bodine back to 4th position.
From the looks of that move, Bob, one would have to say that Earnhardt is really not using all that he's got in that race car. Just the way he took that spot back. It's almost as if he's going to let the race come to him.
Now, knowing the weather that has prevailed over this area all weekend, do you go for the halfway point, Jack, or do you go for the full distance?
I think they've said it so many times. You've got to, at least at this point in the race, go like it's going to be for the full distance. Now, you're going to run just as hard as you can here at Darlington as compared to, let's say, a Talladega or a place like that, because this track is so treacherous. Drivers will tell you, you don't race the competition, you race the track itself. So whether it's 200 miles, 400 miles, or 500 miles, it doesn't matter. Every lap, you've got to race at 110%.
Tim Richmond pulling away from the rest of the field. You can see the interval there between first and second, as Richmond has opened up about a half a straightaway advantage on second, third, fourth, and fifth. They running right together. Second, Bonnet. Earnhardt making a bid for second. He gets it at the end of the straightaway.
Like I said, Earnhardt wants to wait for the race to come to him. He looked in his front windshield and he saw that Richmond was beginning to pull away. So he just reached down and beneath the hood of that car and said, give me a little bit, let me take over second so I can at least keep the leader in sight. He doesn't want to let Richmond get too far ahead of him.
A phenomenal march toward the front of the field by Dale Earnhardt, who was relegated to a second-day qualifier. He was the fastest, of course, on second-day qualifications. Started this race 21st, and now has moved all the way up to number 2. Had he been able to qualify on the first day, his speed was good enough for 5th starting position. Third, fourth, and fifth here. Bonnet and Bodine going at it.
Bodine picked his spot going into turn 3. He goes downstairs. Boy, Bonnet Oh, that was close. It looked to me like maybe Bonnet didn't see him and pinched him just a little bit downstairs. But Bodine gathered it back in, and the other guy that did a whale of a job was Terry Labonte. He gave Bodine the room to recover.
Just a terrific job of driving by Jeff Bodine, whose car was almost completely sideways, and he saved it to hang on to that third position.
Not done intentionally. Neil Bonnet just looked down and he just saw him and he had to back out of it, but that's the close quarters racing that we've got here at Darlington. A great job by Bodine, Bonnet, and as I said, Terry Labonte.
He hung on to 4th position in that move.
Now here's what I'm talking about. Bodine's downstairs, Bonnet taking his customary line, going to point the nose down into where the groove is, but Bodine is there. Bodine has to go almost down onto the apron. He loses traction, and he gathers it back up. Now see, Labonte was back out of the throttle. Gave Bodine all the room that he needed.
It was a situation similar to one in Bristol last weekend. You saw it on our replay of that race a little bit earlier when Ricky Rudd last weekend was right behind Harry Gant when Gant got sideways, and Ricky backed off the accelerator to make sure that he didn't spin.
Boy, all that action is tightened up now for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th position. Bodine running up there in that 3rd spot. In 4th position now is Bonnet. 5th goes to Labonte, and Darrell Waltrip has moved to 6th spot. Bodine's beginning to pull away, but the battle is for the position number 4, held by Neil Bonnet.
Bonnet in 4th, followed by Terry Labonte, and then Darrell Waltrip. Following Waltrip on the racetrack is Bobby Hillin Jr., Cale Yarborough, Buddy Baker, who was 3rd when we restarted this after our rain delay. In 10th position is Ricky Rudd. 11th is Bill Elliott. And the number 27 car of Rusty Wallace has moved back up to 12th position.
And Tim Richmond is still maintaining a sizable lead over Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt is closing, but ever so slightly. The action is right here, what you're seeing. Labonte goes downstairs and takes the spot from Bonnet. It looks like Bonnet may have a little bit of a problem.
Well, Terry made that move very, very nicely and with authority, as as he moved to the low side to make the pass and then moved high on the racetrack to pass a back marker. So obviously that Piedmont Airlines Oldsmobile is working fine. Chet Phillip is being lapped on the racetrack. He's been into the wall earlier in the race. Now we're going to watch the teammates go at it here as Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip meet on the racetrack, and Bobby Hillin Jr. is also right there in number 8.
As you watch Neil Bonnet go through the corners here, Darrell Waltrip hurtling directly behind him, it looks as if there is a little erratic movement on the part of car number 12. That would be indicative of a handling problem. Let's see if we can notice it here in turns 1 and 2. Bonnet tries to maintain the line, and there looks like there may be just a little wiggle to the nose. Could be that that car's a tad loose.
Junior Johnson Machines running in 5th and 6th position. Neither of these drivers will be with Junior next year. Neil will be going to the Raymock operation, and of course Darrell Waltrip with the Rick Hendrick organization.
And look who's lurking in the back there. Cale Yarbrough, just waiting. A 5-time winner of the Southern 500. He likes this race. I think the irony is he's never won the Trans-South 500, but he knows how to get it done on Labor Day weekend.
81 laps have been completed now. On the racetrack, the leader is Tim Richmond, and he is just dominating this race at the moment. Crossing the line right now is 2nd position, the yellow car driven by Dale Earnhardt. And then back to 3rd position is Jeff Bodine, followed by Terry Labonte in 4th, and Neil Bonnet in 5th position. So at the moment, Tim Richmond is controlling the Southern 500 at Darlington International Raceway. Back with more in just a moment. Back at the Southern 500, Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Bodine are your top 3 with 85 laps completed. There's the leader, Tim Richmond, and he has about a 3-second lead now on 2nd place, Dale Earnhardt.
Richmond is being very cautious as he works the race traffic because he knows there's plenty of it, and he knows that while he negotiates it, so does Dale Earnhardt. So he's not really going to lose much of his leading advantage, and he can afford, at least at this point in time, to be extra cautious.
Well, the good news is that Tim Richmond is leading and everything is going well with 87 laps completed. The bad news is it's raining and we have a car in the wall. That's number 70, J.D. McDuffie. Just a slight bump.
He just kissed it. The Winkle Pontiac goes down onto the infield apron. It looks like he might have missed his pit there on the back straightaway. But so far, no yellow has been displayed because he's out of harm's way.
He's out of harm's way. The car is still moving, at least to the moment, although it is now coming to a halt. But he's well off the racetrack and out of everybody's way, so we could very easily not have a yellow flag. Now it is displayed. The yellow comes out, and it'll be a race back to the line. As we were saying just before J.D. did kiss the wall, as we watched the battle back to the line, here comes Tim Richmond. He crosses the line. Dale Earnhardt about to right now. It is raining once again over Darlington International Raceway. Not a heavy rain, but drops are beginning to show in the puddles once again, and drops are beginning to show on the windshield of Rick Wilson in the Kodak car.
Now remember what Tim Richmond told you though. That raindrops, now while that may obscure your visibility, because of the heat that's been built up on the racetrack, until it rains a little heavier, the racetrack is fine. It's been dried in fine fashion, and with all the heat from the tires and these cars, it dissipates as quick as it hits the pavement. Unfortunately, it doesn't do the same on the windshield.
We anticipate some more pit stops in just a moment as the field will come around. Here comes Tim Richmond. Here comes Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Bodine, and others into the pit area. Let's go down to Dick Berggren.
And the pits are going to be a very busy place for sure. All of the leaders are into the pit area right now. This will almost certainly be a 4-tire change for everyone. Richmond is gesturing wildly inside the car to his crew. He's obviously upset about something. It is raining down here on pit road. In fact, it's raining more by far than we'd like to see at this particular juncture. If it keeps up this hard, we may eventually have a problem on the speedway. 4 tire changes going on up and down pit road. Everybody taking on a full load of fuel. And the first car out is the 47. That's Morgan Shepherd. There goes Cale Yarborough. There goes Richmond. Oh, Earnhardt and Richmond almost collide on pit road. Earnhardt, however, gets out in front of Tim Richmond.
That was close, but Earnhardt won the battle. Bill Elliott has a problem, and Terry Labonte's car also with a problem down here right in front of us.
It looks like the car fell off the jack, or the wheel fell off after they'd affixed it, because Labonte had begun to pull away from his pits, and the car, just the whole left side, the left front, just fell down to the ground.
So most everybody moving out of the pit area now. Now they have Labonte's car down off the jack and moving. Bill Elliott also is back out onto the racetrack. So we are under our 5th caution period in 90 laps of the Southern 500. Back in a moment. We're back at Darlington, and Terry Labonte is making another pit stop. The car apparently fell off the jacks last time by. Dick Berggren can explain that for us, Dick.
Well, they definitely had a problem here, and Steve Meal, the crew chief, was knocked over. He was the back of his shirt, his pants are all skinned up. He's wet. He's okay. In fact, he's the guy that's doing the work on this left front. And they did have some damage here on the left front of the automobile, but it doesn't appear to be anything major. They're putting another left front tire on the car. They beat the damage out, and Labonte is back on his way to the speedway.
Unfortunately, though, he has lost a lap. So a tough break for Labonte, who was running up there in the top 10 and in 6th to make that 4th position when the incident occurred.
And it was just a scant few feet that cost him the lap. If they'd been able to reaffix that tire in maybe 4 or 5 seconds earlier than they did, Bob, the stop sign was still green, saying he could have gone out, but the leaders had come across the stripe and they had said, got to hold everybody in the pits, and Labonte lost one full lap.
There you can see our 28:58 update. The American League baseball scores. We'll have golf later this afternoon here on ESPN. Later tonight, we will have the Escort Radar Warning 200 IndyCar race from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And wherever we are in our broadcast schedule, we will have the finish of this race live here on ESPN.
Kind of a fitting departure for Jack Beebe. Morgan Shepherd, who won in Atlanta earlier this year in April, surprised so many people with that privateer entry. He's now leading the famed Southern 500. Boy, Beebe would like nothing better than to go out as a car owner winning the oldest race in NASCAR.
Second on the serial score is Jeff Bodine, then Cale Yarborough now 3rd, Dale Earnhardt is 4th, Tim Richmond back to 5th. 6th position is Bobby Hillin Jr., 7th is Neil Bonnet, 8th Darrell Waltrip, 9th Ricky Rudd, 10th is Buddy Baker, 11th Bill Elliott, 12th is Rick Wilson, in 13th position Dave Marcus, 14th is Benny Parsons, 15th Bobby Allison, 16th is the number 7 car of Kyle Petty. Then we have Ron Bouchard, followed by Morgan Shepherd and Rusty Wallace.
Well, they've been given the signal. One lap and we'll be back to green flag racing. And Shepherd will really have his hands full, Bob, because directly behind him is Bodine, then Yarborough, and then Dale Earnhardt. And Earnhardt has really turned the heat up. But as I said before, I don't think sufficiently that he's wasting his race car in any way.
By the way, that is Jim Sauter that is running in 18th position. Morgan Shepherd is the leader of the race, and he'll bring him to the green flag as we restart the Southern 500. There is the shot from Rusty Wallace's car as he moves that Pontiac down the backstretch. They are getting into the 2 abreast restart formation. Rusty is suffering with a shock absorber problem. That's what's keeping him off the very fast pace, although he is still on the lead lap and is still running in the 19th position. Here they come down for the restart. The green out once again, and 4 abreast this time down the straightaway.
And the jockeying for positions on the inside is mostly lap traffic. They're looking for a spot because they're racing with those guys, even though they may be 2-3 laps down to the leaders. But up front, the battle is enjoined. Bodine goes downstairs down the backstretch.
Jeff Bodine going to the inside of Morgan Shepherd and taking over the lead. Cale Yarborough is there in the white and orange number 28 car in 3rd position.
Boy, don't you think Cale Yarborough's got mixed emotions right now? That number 47 car, he's about to purchase it. So he's going to be extra careful when he goes around that one, because soon it's going to be his piece of machinery.
Cale is tucked right on the back bumper of that Morgan Shepherd machine, the number 47 car owned now by Jack Beebe. But it'll soon become the Cale Yarborough racing operation. Cale, a 5-time winner of the Southern 500 and a 5-time winner here at Darlington.
First race that Cale Yarborough ever saw was at the knee of his dad, and it was the famed Southern 500. And Cale said, from that day forward, I knew I wanted to be a race car driver. He was thrown out of the Southern 500 about 4 different times because he tried to race underage all in one day.
His first race here at Darlington was back in 1957. Now we go back and pick up on this battle involving Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt, and Neil Bonnet.
Richmond's in 4th, in 5th is Earnhardt, Bonnet is in 6th, and they're beginning to duke it out here as they go into turn 3. Earnhardt looks at Tim Richmond's rear deck lid, stays glued right there, and look at how quick Bonnet can close up the advantage. But he seems to be lacking just a little something, not enough to stay just as tight as Earnhardt does to Richmond.
Running in this group of cars behind Neil Bonnet and Bobby Hillin is Darrell Waltrip. Now, we showed you part of the Busch 500 from Bristol International Speedway while we were in our rain delay. For those of you who do not know, Darrell Waltrip did go on to win that race at Bristol, followed by Terry Labonte, Jeff Bodine, Dale Earnhardt, and Harry Gant. Those were the first 5 finishers of the Busch 500 last Saturday night at Bristol International Raceway.
And Dale Earnhardt knows that Darrell Waltrip scored that victory. Earnhardt is in the head of the points list, and he is being followed by Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip's done it before in 81, 82, and in 1985. He scored a Winston Cup championship after being down as many as 200 points going into this race. So Earnhardt, he feels the heat. He hears the footsteps from one Darrell Waltrip.
Waltrip is only 121 points behind Dale Earnhardt as we enter this 21st race of the 1986 Winston Cup season. It's going down to the final race undoubtedly again for the Winston Cup title. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, Piedmont Airline Oldsmobile was in the pits, and Terry Labonte continues to have problems. In the last pit stop, they did not get all the lug nuts on the tires, and you heard Dick Berger talk about the problem they had. They also tagged one of their crew members, Steve Neal. He's kneeling down before that left front tire, trying to work on the car. Now they have another problem. They have lost the brakes. Apparently, when they dropped the car off the jack, they must have cut a brake line in the car. They have no brakes on it to get the car slowed. They're going to try to make some repairs and get him back out, but it could be a long afternoon for the Piedmont crew and Terry Labonte.
Tough break for Terry Labonte. Labonte will be moving over to Darrell Waltrip Jr. Johnson prepared entry next year, but he wanted to win for Billy Hagan, and now the lessee of the team, Wayne King, who's taken over the day-to-day operation, and Steve Neal, one of the best crew chiefs in the business. And boy, he was lucky that he didn't get injured when that car fell off the jack, Bob.
Still up on the jacks right now. They're conversing with Terry. And now the car is down, and Terry Labonte moves away from the pit area and rejoins the race. Terry was the winner earlier this year at Rockingham and has had about 3 second-place finishes. He just can't get the car to run. I thought he was going to pull behind the wall there for a moment.
Indeed, that's what he wanted to do, is he wanted to go behind the wall, but the wall was blocked by the pace car. So what they're going to do is he's going to take one quick circuit around. Steve Neal and the crew got set out back behind the wall, and they're going to make major repairs to the brakes.
There you can see Terry was the winner of the 1980 Southern 500. Labonte, the Corpus Christi, Texas driver, now living in Archdale, North Carolina, may be pulling behind the wall. The car on the move is Rusty Wallace, number 27.
Now remember, we've got a report that Rusty Wallace is having some sort of a shock absorber problem. And you can see it in this in-car. See the bounce? See, that's not the way it should be. This track is not that bumpy. The car is not traveling properly on its shocks. So the race setup has just gone totally out the window. And what Rusty Wallace is faced with is wrestling a grizzly bear for the next 500 miles.
It's amazing that he's been able to put himself into 19th position with that. '87 is concerned.
Bouchard is riderless right now. He does not have a drive. The word is that he will be departing the Mike Curb organization. A lot of talk that Dale Jarrett will drive that car. Jarrett made a campaign with it at Bristol 1 week ago. Where Bouchard goes, no one knows right now.
And Jeff Bodine has just opened up a tremendous lead on the rest of the field. He passed Morgan Shepherd when the green came out on the most recent restart, and now has almost a 4-second lead on Shepherd, who continues to run in second position. Tim Richmond is third, then Earnhardt, then Neil Bonnet, Cale Yarborough, and Bobby Dillon Jr. There's Bodine crossing the stripe and completing 106 laps. The halfway point is 184. If they run 185 laps, and if we should have, heaven forbid, another rain shower, they could stop the race and it would be declared an official race. But we're hopeful that we can get the entire 367 laps in, complete this Southern 500.
Remember one thing, there's only about 142 miles completed in this 500-mile contest, and right now the key, the battle plan for all these drivers is not to go a lap down. There's no need to really use up your equipment, and from the looks of things and looking at Bodine as he works his race car, as we've seen Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt, all of them are driving a very heady race. None of them are pressing at 150%. They're not getting everything out of the car. But Jerry Punch right now is with someone from Terry Labonte's crew.
With Steve Meal, the crew chief, and Steve, you've had a ration of problems, but what really is the problem with the car?
Well, we messed up a pit stop, and the car got let off the jack with the left front wheel nut on it, and Terry come back in and we fixed it, but I told him it may have hurt a brake caliper, so when he went out, he had a vibration. He thought he busted a brake rotor or might have broke a caliper or something. Actually, he had equalized the left rear tire, so we fixed that, and the car's all right, but we're a bunch of laps down.
You got hit by the car when it dropped off the jack. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
That's Steve Meal here in the Piedmont pit.
Jeff Bodine continues to lead. You know, you can come to a racetrack and lay miles and miles of cable and get everything just right, but when it rains, it really causes some headaches for us. Perhaps you're not getting the best video or audio on this Sunday evening now in your respective hometowns while you're watching the race. We apologize. It's simply the fact that a tremendous amount of water has fallen here and has gotten into our cables and is really messing things up. The battle is for second position, Morgan Shepherd and Tim Richmond.
And it's become a dandy one. Shepherd holds the spot as they go to turn 3, but Richmond began to make a move on him there in turns 1 and 2. Now Richmond goes down, takes a look, backs up back into the group. Now he's trying to get a run on Morgan Shepherd as they hurtle down across the start-finish line. Won't do it, though.
This is more than a 2-car race. It's a 4-car battle for position. Shepherd, Richmond right behind Dale Earnhardt, and then Neil Bonnet. And Richmond's car a little bit sideways there in the second turn. We even saw some tire smoke come off of it, but Tim handled it nicely. He did drop back, though, about a car length, and now is being challenged by Dale Earnhardt as they are at the end of the backstretch. But Richmond holds on to that third spot. Now Earnhardt again to the low side of the racetrack. He passes Tim Richmond and goes to third.
Classic move by Dale Earnhardt. Saw a miscue, saw an opportunity, and just stabbed at it. Took the spot away.
Morgan Shepherd has been able, however, to hold on to that second position in a pretty impressive drive by Morgan, who next year goes to the Kenny Bernstein-owned team, which is now, of course, the car being driven by Joe Ruttman, who retired from this race very early in the contest.
So Richmond has been relegated back to the 4th position. In 5th spot is Bonnet. Now Bonnet looked to the inside, trying to take a move, but Morgan Shepherd is holding all of these guys in bay right now, and Shepherd has got a little something to prove, not only for himself, but his retiring car owner, Jack Beebe. Now Bonnet looks to the inside of Richmond for the spot, and that's for 4th.
Pulls alongside, at least gets about half the car alongside Tim Richmond, but then backs out of the accelerator and sets the car into 3rd place. Terry Labonte into the pit area once again as they continue to work on that car and try to get it back in good running order. Terry Labonte was running as high as 4th position when the car fell off the jack on a pit stop, and they've had trouble with it ever since.
Well, you heard Steve say that they think they may have bent a brake caliper, and if that's the case, the car will vibrate terrifically, even when you're not on the brakes, because it may be rubbing up against the rotor. And boy, that's tough here.
Labonte goes back into the race as we continue to watch 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now third and fourth position. It's Earnhardt and Tim Richmond. Now Neil Bonnet once again dives that car low, but is unable to pass. Here is Richmond looking to the inside of Dale Earnhardt, but he also backs out of it as they go high on the racetrack to lap number 64, Connie Saylor.
Some nice early power, too, from Neil Bonnet. Bonnet has not been really that great of a ride in 1987. He's yet to be victorious. That's so unusual for any Junior Johnson ride. And Bonnet's got a lot to prove. He's going to the Raymock team next year, but it would be nice, as we talked about early on in the race, for him to be able to score a victory, gain entrance into the Winston, and possibly be able to bring to the Raymock team an invitation to the Winner's Circle program that's worth about $180,000 to $200,000 in 1987.
Now Neil Bonnet once again watches Tim Richmond's car slide just a little bit sideways in the second corner, but Bonnet thinking better of making a move. I think that Morgan Shepherd has to be given a lot of credit here. He qualified in 20th position. He was the slowest qualifier on the first day of time trials at 153.3, about 5 miles an hour off the pole pace, I should say. But he has held on to that second spot, and now Tim Richmond moves inside at the end of the front stretch to pass Dale Earnhardt, and Richmond momentarily moves to third. Bonnet also challenging Dale Earnhardt.
Now, Bonnet looked to the inside of Dale Earnhardt, but when Richmond got out of the throttle, just burped it for a second, Earnhardt had to back out. Everybody was crossed up. Not enough that you could see it on your screen, but enough that they all just played it a little cautiously because there's so much racing left. And everybody said, well, let's settle down and we'll go for it the next lap.
While all of this is going on, Jeff Bodine continues to hang on to the lead, and in fact, he continues to stretch out the advantage. There he is, lapping Jonathan Edwards in car number 92. Bodine, one of 3 drivers here this afternoon who can win, if he should win this race, a bonus of $100,000. He was the winner of the Daytona 500, and you have to win 2 to pick up that $100,000.
Meanwhile, back for the battle in second position. Morgan Shepherd runs in second. Third spot still belongs to the teammate of your leader, Bodine. That, of course, Richmond. Earnhardt has been moved to fourth spot as they go down into turn 1. And in fifth is Neil Bonnet. Cale Yarborough is in sixth. And it looks as if moving into seventh, yes, it's Buddy Baker. And in eighth spot is Bill Elliott.
By the way, it's a 6.5 second advantage for Jeff Bodine over Morgan Shepherd. There is Earnhardt and the number 12 car of Neil Bonnet. Now behind Bonnet.
That's 6th, 7th, and 8th. And Yarborough in 6th, 7th to Baker, and in 8th is Bill Elliott. And they're having one wingding battle of their own.
Cale Yarborough in the Hardee's car, number 28. There is Buddy Baker, who ran as high as 3rd, but has not been quite as fast on the racetrack since we had the rain delay, as he was in the very early going of this race. He's driving the Crisco-sponsored Oldsmobile car number 88. Bill Elliott is there in car number 9. They have to maneuver themselves through the slower traffic, going high to pass some cars and moving to the inside, in this case, to pass DK Ulrich in the number 6 car.
Are you an aspiring race driver? Do you want to someday drive in Darlington? Well, study these cars. Morgan Shepherd, Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt, Neil Bonnet, Cale Yarborough. Watch the way they approach this racetrack and the way they work the race traffic. They go to the high side, just weave alongside a slower car. They never want to use too much energy. They don't want to horse the car around. They want to just keep it as smooth as possible, because that's why they call Darlington the Lady in Black. If you don't, it'll bite you.
It's almost a 9-second lead now for Jeff Bodine, but look at this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running right together on the racetrack. This looks like almost a Talladega type race. Boy, they're hooked into each other and really going at it.
Only difference is about 35 to 40 miles per hour. But the concentration, I would dare say, is higher here because of the mental fatigue that you've got to go through. At any second, you can lose a position. Baker looks to the inside of Yarborough, and as does Elliott. Baker's hung out there. He's going to have to go for the spot. He does. He's got it.
Baker moves into 6th position. Cale is back to 7th, and Bill Elliott runs in 8th spot. We have completed 122 laps of the Southern 500 at Darlington on this very overcast and what has been a very rainy weekend. The Grand National race yesterday here at Darlington, they completed 3 laps shy of halfway and had to stop it. And it's supposed to be finished tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock if we can get this race in. Terry Labonte comes back into the pits as we watch Earnhardt and Bonnet on the racetrack. Now Elliott and Cale Yarborough are into a tussle as Bill Elliott moves to the inside in the backstretch, and Bill Elliott moves to 7th, relegating Cale back to 8th.
Again, a little jostling for positions. They're just trying to check things out. It's still a long way to go in the race, and you can be sure that the crews are keeping each of these drivers appraised as to what the weather conditions are too, not only on the track, but what the skies look like. In answer to your question earlier, right now they're racing like this is going to go 500 miles.
Morgan Shepherd is continuing to hold on to that second place. Here is the leader, Jeff Bodine, crossing the stripe, completing lap number 125. Bodine finished 3rd last weekend at Bristol. His wins this year have come at Daytona, of course, and on the high banks of Dover Speedway.
You know, Bodine had a real thrill this past week. He got a chance to go down to the United States Air Force 48th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, and they put Bodine through the paces in an F-15 Eagle jet fighter, and it gave him a totally new definition of speed and performance. But do you know who gave him a ride in it? Mike Alexander, a Grand National driver's brother, who was one of the lieutenants in the Air Force, gave him a ride in that F-15.
And there you had an idea of the interval between 1st and 2nd. As I said, it's about a 8-second lead right now for Jeff Bodine. This second place scramble between Morgan Shepherd and Tim Richmond. Shepherd pretty impressive though in that number 47 Race Hill Farms Buick, being able to hold off Richmond, Earnhardt, and the others and keep that second position.
Morgan Shepherd's a winner on the Winston Cup Tour. He won in Atlanta, and in his rookie year of Winston Cup competition, he scored a short track victory for Cliff Stewart when he drove the famed number 5, kind of ironic, huh, at Martinsville Speedway. So Shepherd knows his way to victory lane, and he's got one heck of a crew chief, Jake Elder, who was his crew chief on the 47 car today.
We'll get a clocking here on exactly the interval between 1st and 2nd as Jeff Bodine now is running right behind the number 75 car of Jim Sauter, and Sauter is running in 19th spot. Here they come, and it's about a 6.5 second lead for Jeff Bodine over Morgan Shepherd and the others.
6.5 seconds at Darlington is not a whole lot, especially at this point in the race. We're coming up to, what, a little over 170 miles of competition. There's a lot left.
This race is going to go well into the evening if we don't get any more precipitation. We'll do it one more time here and see if it's a larger interval or a smaller interval for Jeff Bodine over the group of, and it's a 5.6, so almost a second shaved off there in just that one lap.
Well, there's a reason for that, too. The race traffic has begun to thin out directly in front of Bodine and in front of the rest of the pack. Bodine now is kind of like blazing his way through. He's coming up on heavy race traffic, so he will have to be a little slower and a little more cautious than the rest of the field, namely Shepherd and Richmond and Earnhardt.
Jeff Bodine leads the Southern 500 at Darlington International Raceway. We'll be back in just a moment with more coverage. We're glad you could join us on this Sunday afternoon at Darlington International Raceway for the Southern 500. It's being led right now by Jeff Bodine. The story has been weather here all weekend. We had a 2-hour and 13-minute rain delay. With Jeff Bodine leading, the real battle is for second position. It involves several cars, including Morgan Shepherd, Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt, and others as they come down the straightaway and jockey for position.
And a pass was made for 5th spot. Moving into 5th position was $1 Million Bill. Bill Elliott is moving now. He's moved up to 5th, and he's beginning to challenge Dale Earnhardt for the 4th spot. Working the race traffic, going by Eddie Bierschwale. Elliott just didn't have enough time.
There is Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt running right together on the racetrack, and Neil Bonnet is also in this battle. Let's go down to Dick Berggren for a report from the pit area.
Well, it may appear as if everything is just fine with Jeff Bodine's car, but the crew beside me here has been busily preparing the tires for the next pit stop. Crew Chief Gary Nelson says the car, sure, it's pretty good, but it can be a little bit better. The car's a little bit loose, so they're going to change the rear tire stacker. They're going to change the handling on the car. Not that much, said Nelson, on the next pit stop. Bodine can get faster yet.
Well, Jeff Bodine is having no problems at the moment keeping that lead, but look at this. It is still a tremendous race involving Bonnet, Earnhardt, and Bill Elliott.
And that is the battle for the 4th spot. Elliott has taken over 4th, relegating Earnhardt back to 5th, and actually, Bonnet is in the 6th position. And look who's beginning to show in the picture as well, the 88 Crisco car of Buddy Baker. He's in the 7th position.
Oh, Bonnet almost sideways there. We've seen that, though, before, and each time Neil has been able to maintain control of that car. He moves alongside Earnhardt. At the end of the straightaway, he picks up the position.
What a way to capitalize on misfortune and turn it around 180 degrees and make it good fortune. That's what Neil Bonnet did, and he gained a spot in the process.
There is Cale Yarborough, who's running behind Buddy Baker and Earnhardt and Bonnet. Now Earnhardt looking to the inside of Bonnet. Oh, the cars, it appeared they touched.
They banged. There's no question about it. They really put the chrome horn to each other.
This is reminiscent more of the Bristol short track last weekend in the super speedway at Darlington. There's been a lot of body contact out there on the racetrack.
Now,
let's take a look at it.
Watch this. Out of the throttle just a little bit. Earnhardt looks to the inside. Boom. Little bit of a drop kick. Intentional? Probably not. Just part of the racing action here. And look at Baker. Baker just had to gather it all in because he drove right up on them.
It is still Jeff Bodine controlling this race and Morgan Shepherd in second. There is Bodine as he continues to just run flawlessly around this 1.3-mile racetrack. With 140 laps completed, will be at the halfway point in 44 more laps.
But what was going on with Gary Nelson and the Levi Garrett crew on pit road that Dick Berggren reported is indicative of their feelings about how the race is going. They're not satisfied with the way the car is. They feel that there's plenty of racing left, and boy, especially at Darlington, the setup can go away in a heartbeat. They want to be prepared to make the adjustments on the next pit stop. Now, for Jake Elder and the crew in the second place machine of Morgan Shepherd, they've got to sit down and look in their playbook and say, how can we gain the advantage? But they also have to figure out what's going to happen to the racetrack. They can't try and make an advantage now for the situation. They've got to anticipate what it's going to be like maybe 30 or 40 laps from now and try and give that setup to Morgan Shepherd on the next pit stop.
Tim Richmond sneaking up on Morgan Shepherd, and it appeared as if he was going to make a run for that second spot. Now he pulls alongside once again, but drops back in line as Bill Elliott is beginning to catch now Tim Richmond for third.
Kind of looks like these guys are catching their Southern 500 stride, so to speak. They're beginning to bounce around a little bit, try each other out just a little bit more. Look at that. Change in position. Second spot now goes to Tim Richmond. Morgan Shepherd's back to third.
And Morgan Shepherd had held on to that second spot for many, many laps, but finally relinquishes it to Tim Richmond. The lead, by the way, for Jeff Bodine has moved up to 7.8 seconds. While these guys have been battling for that second spot, Bodine has just continued to motor away. Now it appears as if Bill Elliott may be ready to make a move on Morgan Shepherd for that third position. Bill begins to close in on the Race Hill Farms Buick and assess his chances of making the pass here.
Remember, Dan Elliott told us on pit road that the car was comfortable. Nobody wants to hear that about an Elliott car. If Bill says that it's comfortable, he's going to be awesome all afternoon.
Bill Elliott, the winner of $1 billion here last year, but he's not eligible for that this year. While we watch our 28:58 update, let's go down to the pit area once again.
Well, if you've ever driven a car down the highway and sort of heard a thump, thump, thump and felt a little bump, bump and wondered what it was and felt a little anxious and a little nervous, imagine what it would be like to do it at 150 miles an hour. This is the left front wheel that they just took off Terry Labonte's car, and you can see marks on that left front wheel. Those marks were caused by the brake caliper actually contacting the wheel. That's what Labonte felt. Imagine feeling a thump that you couldn't identify. You'd had several good mechanics look at it 3 or 4 times. They couldn't find it, and you're out there at 150 miles an hour, not sure where all this noise is coming from. Boy, I'll tell you, it must have been quite a ride for Labonte. Problem's fixed now, though.
So that is this explanation of Terry Labonte's problem. He has been in and out of the pits all afternoon. We continue to watch this second, third, and fourth place scramble.
Beginning to heat up. Morgan Shepherd, feeling the hot breath of Bill Elliott, has picked up the pace just a bit, and they've closed on Tim Richmond. It's a trifecta for second spot now. Richmond maybe has 3 car lengths over Shepherd in third, and then maybe 1 car length between Shepherd and fourth position held by Elliott.
Elliott right behind Morgan Shepherd, coming off of the fourth corner. But Elliott content for the time being to sit right where he is and watch the action in front of him. Elliott has looked strong all race long after having started from 14th position. He has been very competitive, and as you can see, he is now in fourth place. Laps completed. Elliott again charging up on the rear bumper of that car. Now moving to the inside. They go 3 wide down the straightaway here. But Elliott still cannot pick up the position. They move to the inside and outside of Rusty Wallace to pass him. And Rusty's shock absorber problems are continuing for him in that Aluguard car. He was another very optimistic race driver coming into this event, but things can go wrong, and it's been a simple matter of a shock absorber that has made Rusty Wallace uncompetitive this afternoon.
There's Tim Richmond behind the in-car camera. Richmond, who is being posted in the second position, so that means that Wilson is one of the left cars that Richmond has to successfully negotiate his way around. And let's see what position he takes. Boy, you can see just how loose Richmond's car was. Now, whether that was loose or tight, you can't tell from that position, but he gets by.
Wilson moving to the inside of the racetrack to allow this group of cars to pass second, third, and fourth position. Now DK Ulrich also moving low on the racetrack to allow the faster cars to pass. Rick Wilson in car number 4. There he is, running in 14th position. He is a lap down to the leaders, but still out there and moving at pretty good speed in that Oldsmobile.
And Bob, by our calculations, in about another 10 to 15 laps, we should begin to see some of the front runners presenting themselves on pit road, which could be the first green flag stop of the race. Bodina's gone by Dave Marcus to put another lap in the record books. That'll be lap 152. Now, most of them have pitted on lap 90, and it's getting tight now. Now look at this battle for that third position. They've gotten by Richmond, and so now, whoa, real close. Shepherd has taken over second spot.
Shepherd has moved into second position, but Tim tried to take it back there at the end of the straightaway, couldn't get the job done, so it's second, third, and fourth once again, battling for this spot. Here is Tim Richmond moving to the inside of Shepherd once again and taking the spot. So Richmond now back to second, or is he? Shepherd.
Well, this is a battle to the stripe, Bob. The caution has been displayed for Rusty Wallace. There you see it. They're going for the front position. Richmond is going to take it at the stripe.
So Richmond will be second on the restart, and Morgan Shepherd third. Rusty Wallace has crashed in the backstretch.
Let's take a look from the other in-car camera exactly what the crash looked like.
By the way, you can see Rusty's moving around in there. He's okay. But
now watch
here's
this.
how it was from the in-car camera of Rick Wilson.
You're looking at it from behind Rick Wilson's car. Wallace loses it coming out of turn 3. Just a slow, easy slide, and then ping! A little puff of smoke, and he hits the retaining barrier.
Rusty Wallace sits helplessly against the inside wall. He takes off the helmet, and it appears as if he's going to be calling it a day. Now here are the leader pit stops. Bodine is in. They go to work on the right side of the car.
And he's showing some damage. The leader's showing some damage on the right rear quarter panel as they go to work there. Morgan Shepherd, led by Jake Elder, pits through. They're making some changes. Now they're going to change 4 tires. Richmond is going to do likewise. The crew comes around. They've completed their work on the right side. They're removing the left side tires. Let's go down to Dick Bergeron, who's on pit road.
Well, I'll tell you, Richmond's pit is certainly an animated place. They've changed 2 tires on the car. And Richmond the whole time was barking at his crew. Come on, guys, hurry up. It's great. He wants to get back out there and get going.
So Morgan Shepherd moves back out onto the racetrack, as does Bill Elliott, Morgan Shepherd, Cale Yarborough, and others. Darrell Waltrip has not yet left the pit area. Now there he goes. They were jacking some weight, weren't they?
Making some major chassis modifications on that car.
So Jeff Bodine, I believe, is going to hold on to the lead here as he was in and out of the pits very quickly. 155 laps completed in the Southern 500. We are in our 6th caution period of the afternoon, and we'll be back right after this. We will be going to that live coverage of our golf tournament this afternoon at 5:30. We'll break away from the Southern 500. However, we will be back with occasional updates, and we will have the finish for you live. At the moment, there are the top 5. It's Bodine, Richmond, Earnhardt, Bonnet, and Elliott with 155. Out of 367 laps completed, there are the second 5. Rudd, Shepherd, Waltrip, Baker, and Bobby Hillin Jr.
There's how quick you can lose a front-running position and be relegated back to the second 5. Morgan Shepherd and Darrell Waltrip, both of them running quite well, but made long pit stops to make chassis adjustments. The pace car has positioned its light in the off position. The field is rumbling into turn 3, and Bob, we're getting ready to go back to green flag racing with 156 laps in the record book.
Still not to the halfway point. That will be lap 184. Rick Wilson is having trouble with that number 4 Kodak car. He was in for a very long pit stop, but now is back out there, and he himself is getting ready for the restart.
Looks like the Long Island Expressway waiting to go through the toll booth there. As he begins to build the revs up, you see the tachometer go up and shifts through the gear. We're back racing again.
Thundering herd down the main straightaway, receiving the green flag. Benny Parsons' car is faltering here at the start. He's dropping low on the racetrack. Meanwhile, some body contact between Dave Marcus and Tim Richmond. There in turn number 2, Richmond set sail for his teammate, the leader, Jeff Bodine.
Bodine just shot himself out of a cannon. He's got a sizable advantage over Richmond, but at the far end of the screen, there's Dale Earnhardt. He's just reeling in Tim Richmond. There's where the battle's going to be for second spot shortly.
Dale Earnhardt moving up quickly on second place, Tim Richmond. The field comes out of turn number 4, coming down the main straightaway once again. There's the interval between first and second position, Bodine and Richmond, and the narrowing margin between second and third as Earnhardt moves in on Tim Richmond. Benny Parsons' car just would not go on that restart. He dropped low on the racetrack and has fallen back considerably.
Earnhardt and Richmond, neighbors, friends, they talk a lot about racing. They have a style that's very similar. Both of them would like to win the Southern 500, as would this gentleman, Jeff Bodine. Bodine, I think, more than anyone, is really super motivated for this win. But you can't count out Morgan Shepherd and Darrell Waltrip either. Now, they had that low pit stop. They're running back in the second 10, as we say, being shown in 7th and 8th positions right now, but they've made some chassis modifications, and right now they're trying to test it out to see if they're going to work to their advantage or not. Waltrip looked to the high side of Shepherd and just did a whoop-de-doo scoop down low, but couldn't get by him.
We gave you the top 10 just a moment ago. Also on the lead lap, Bobby Allison and Cale Yarborough. Now a lap down in 13th position unofficially is Dave Marcus. In 14th, also a lap down, Kyle Petty, and in 15th is Ron Bouchard. There is the 7th and 8th place runners, Morgan Shepherd and Darrell Waltrip.
A Buick and a Chevrolet. Very different body configurations. One with a long, sloping rear window. That's the Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS of Darrell Waltrip. The other one with kind of a blunt nose, that being the Buick, that has a kind of a unique hood to it that wraps around almost down into the quarter panel. But Morgan Shepherd is holding Waltrip, and now Buddy Baker at bay for that battle for 7th spot.
Baker all of a sudden makes himself a factor in this race for 7th spot as Baker has closed in on the rear of the Darrell Waltrip car. They move into turn number 3, and we now have 3 cars nose to tail battling for that position. You can still see evidence of the rain that we had earlier today, as on the inside of the racetrack there are still some dark spots, and those spots are wet, but the groove itself, the racetrack that they used to run on, is completely dry. We have had no rain now in quite a while, and we are still optimistic that we will continue to get this race in. Buddy Baker making the move on Darrell Waltrip and moving into 8th position.
And he acquired it very nicely. Baker, a good call to him in the first half of this race. He's driven a heady race. He knows it's a long distance event. Now he's set his sights on Morgan Shepherd as they come down across the stripe. Will he get him? They're side by side as they hit the stripe in that battle for the 7th spot. He's got it.
Buddy Baker goes into 7th, having picked off both Waltrip and Morgan Shepherd in that last lap. The number 88 car is the one that Al Unser was asked to drive at Watkins Glen, while Buddy Baker played crew chief that weekend, but now Buddy is back in the car for this Southern 500 and doing a fine job.
And Baker owns that car along with textile magnate Danny Schiff. And you know, you ought to hear Baker tell the stories about being an owner and a driver. He says, what can you do? If it's an owner, you can't fire the driver.
Buddy Baker has won twice here on Darlington International Raceway, but he has never been a winner of the Southern 500. Both of his victories have come in the spring race. It's now called the Trans-South 500. Approaching Dave Marcus in car number 71. Marcus will move to the high side of the racetrack and allow Buddy to go low.
It's evident that Baker is getting hooked up now. He's beginning to turn the wick up. He is leaving Morgan Shepherd and Darrell Waltrip in his wake. He's put Dave Marcus between himself and those as he stays solidly in 7th spot. But he's got a long way to go before he comes up on Bill Elliott, who's posted in the 5th position.
And a guy that we have not talked about hardly at all today, but someone who is solidly in this race in 6th position, the driver who's in the car right ahead of Buddy Baker, and that is Ricky Rudd.
Rudd driving for Bud Moore. They've renewed their contract for 1987. Rudd will stay at the wheel of the Motorcraft Ford. Now let's see if Baker can reel in Rudd as easily as he did Shepherd and Earnhardt. Not quite so easy in turn 1. Let's see what he does coming out of 2. Can he gain the momentum to try and pass that Ford Thunderbird? Rudd, as you said, kind of unnoticed, kind of quiet, but he's there solidly in 6th. And here's the battle for the front position. Tim Richmond takes it.
So for the first time in many, many laps, we have a change of leader. Jeff Bodine had been dominating this race since the 96th lap. However, now Tim Richmond, the pole sitter in today's Southern 500, grabs the lead away from Jeff Bodine, and Tim Richmond now being shown as the leader on lap 167.
Boy, Richmond just pulled away to a good-sized advantage there once he negotiated the pass of Bodine. Bodine, there you see him in 2nd spot. Richmond, it looks like he may have cured some of his handling difficulties as well, Bob. It just doesn't seem to dart as much. It looks like the car is a little steadier in turns 3 and 4.
In the last 10 races, Tim Richmond has finished either 1st or 2nd in 8 of them. He had a very poor, so to speak, 15th place finish at Michigan, and he was 6th last weekend on the high banks of Bristol. Aside from that, in the last 10 races, Richmond either 1st or 2nd, and he obviously is happy with the way that this car and his crew chief Harry Hyde and the rest of the team has performed.
Don't count out Tim Richmond either, because in the points chase, because he's only about 175 points, actually 165 points behind your leader Dale Earnhardt. And Richmond has always said he wants to let his right foot do his talking as it applies to the Winston Cup Championship. But he's going to have to get his short track program better prepared than it was at Bristol if he hopes to win the Winston Cup.
Richmond leading Bodine, Earnhardt, then Neil Bonnet and Bill Elliott. Those are your top 5 at the moment. Right now, ESPN and NASCAR present a track fact.
Within earshot of the fourth turn of the Darlington Raceway and well within walking distance is an establishment that holds just about as much history. It's called the Raceway Grill, and it's where the Winston Cup elite meet to eat. It may not be the 21 Club or the Brown Derby, but it's close, and the food is good. Teams can take a quick time out from their chores and duck over here to fill their stomachs and be ready to get after it some more. Believe me, more race setups have been talked over this kind of a setup than in any garage area anywhere. Hey, wait a minute, what are you doing here?
The cheeseburgers are fantastic. Richmond, Bodine, Earnhardt, Bonnet, and Elliott, your top 5 with 169 laps complete at the Southern 500. We'll be back right after these messages. With Tim Richmond leading the Southern 500 and Jeff Bodine, his teammate, running in second spot. Let's go to Dick Berggren, who is with Jeff Bodine's crew chief, Gary Nelson.
Well, Gary, after you guys led so many laps, Tim has blown by you. Is there a problem with the car? What's going on? Are you just being conservative at this point?
Well, definitely. We're on the loose side. The car, Jeff can run the car faster than he is, but it's too early to take chances. We're going to ride for a while, make some adjustments, and hope to be up front at the end.
So you're going to make some adjustments on the next pit stop, try to tighten the car up and go faster?
Well, yeah, we've adjusted it a little bit on each stop, and we've only come close to solving it. I think we're going to make a little bit bigger adjustment this stop and see if that'll do it.
Now, they've been looking at all the tire charts just to make sure they get exactly the right setup. Meanwhile, up pit road, Barry Bunch has caught up with another competitor.
Benny, it's been a rough afternoon for you. We've had to park the Copenhagen Oldsmobile. What put you out?
On the restart, the transmission went away, Jerry. I don't know what happened. I think that I probably knocked all the teeth off the main drive in the transmission. Probably what happened.
You had trouble earlier in the day. You got in a little bit of a fender duel with someone out there and had some brake problems.
Yep. When the 17 car wrecked on the back, I ran on the back of Bobby Allison. And when I had to mix up on the front straightaway, I hit the 23 car or something. I just couldn't stop.
We have a spin on the track, Benny.
And it is Jim Sauter in car number 75 who spins to the infield, the inside of the racetrack in turn 2.
It was a real lazy sort of spin. No real danger, no real harm done, no foul. But for Sauter, it's been a long afternoon in that Nationwide Pontiac. You know, this is only Sauter's second race here. The last one was his first one in 1981, and he only ran 20 laps there. So he's paying his dues here at the Lady in Black.
Morgan Shepherd, the driver of that car on the short tracks, with Sauter here on the super speedways. We have not seen the yellow flag, and again, Sauter's car is well off of the racetrack, but now the yellow does come out. We apologize to Benny for having to bring a premature halt to that conversation with him. And we know that Benny will be back on the racetrack and hopefully in the broadcast booth with us here on ESPN.
Bob, a lot of viewers may wonder, why doesn't the caution come out real quick? Why don't they show the flag? When you've got a car positioned like that one where Jim Sauter was, as I said, no harm, no foul. They want to wait and see if the driver will be able to refire it first. If he can and then pull it back and drive away, we'll stay with green flag racing. When they let what seems to be a long time but was only about 8 to 10 seconds tick off, then they say, all right, let's put it out because it must be obvious that he can't get the car refired.
So the yellow has come out, and now we anticipate more pit stops.
And we heard Gary Nelson say that they were going to have to make a major adjustment this time to try and find the advantage that they need to go back to run to the front. We'll have to wait and see what Nelson and company do to Jeff Bodine, who's running in second position. And also, they don't cut out Harry Hyde with Tim Richmond. It looks like Hyde kept Richmond out there to lead a lap.
Well, why would that be? All of a sudden, he just pulled back onto the racetrack. Tim Richmond did, allowing everyone else, including his teammate Bodine, Earnhardt, Bonnet, Elliott, Baker, Waltrip, Yarborough, Allison, and others to come in?
Don't know. I mean, that really is a question, because he's already led enough laps. He's got that to his advantage. So if he's looking for points, that wouldn't be. But the way that he was called out there, it looks to me almost as if Richmond was told on the radio, stay out, don't come in at the last minute.
Well, maybe it's because he's happy with the tires that he has on the car right now, and he feels that there will be an ample opportunity to come in for fuel, so he's just happy with the car and is staying out there. Dale Earnhardt, by the way, had a very quick pit stop and is the first one out of the pits from this series of stops.
Now, here's a strategy move I would think on Harry Hyde's part. Fuel is not in precious commodity right now. They pitted just a while back, so they've got plenty of fuel. I think Harry Hyde may have gambled and said this way, look, the tires are good on the car, no sense coming in and topping off the fuel. If the rain comes, you've got the lead. They've all got to work their way back through the lapped race traffic. But if it doesn't rain, if they do start to close in on him, the likes of Dale Earnhardt and Morgan Shepherd, well, he's still got everything that he needs to be able to go the distance until his next customary pit stop. But the question mark is they'll need another caution, or they'll have to do it under green.
We will reach the halfway point in 3 more laps, and we'll be back with our coverage from Darlington after these messages. The green has just come back out at Darlington, and this completes lap number 183 now. One more lap will be halfway, and if we should have a major downpour, the race would be stopped, and it would be considered a complete race. Now, Tim Richmond did not pit on that most recent caution. Why, Dick Berggren? Tell us the reason.
Well, I asked Harry Hyde that, Bob, and he just pointed up at the sky, and as you can see, it's very dark. You guys can't see it because it's behind you, but dark clouds are coming in. It is starting to rain again. If he stayed in the lead, and if we do get a rain, and if it rains it out, he's the winner. Never count Harry Hyde out. He is one shoot operator.
Boy, and look at this battle, too. They're racing for things now. The 47 of Morgan Shepherd. Neil Bonnet running there, and Jeff Bodine. They've made their pit stops, and they are battling for 3rd, 4th, and 5th spots respectively. Bodine looking for the 4th spot. He goes to the inside of Bonnet. From the looks of things, Bob, everybody has seen the dark clouds except us because they're occluded from us, and I think they're all racing like now this thing's only going to go about halfway.
That is exactly my thoughts. It's obvious that Jeff Bodine is trying to get to the front very, very quickly. Now, Jeff Bodine to the inside of Morgan Shepherd. He passes Morgan, and now Jeff Bodine is in 3rd spot, setting sail for 2nd place, Dale Earnhardt. We do have a complete race. We are past the halfway point. So we will not be back tomorrow. The question is, can we complete the full distance here this afternoon, or will we have to stop it prematurely?
And with the foreboding clouds behind us, you're going to watch these drivers, and in their minds, they're going to drive it like there's only 50 or maybe 60 miles to go in the Southern 500. They've all turned the wick up. The lap speeds are much quicker now. They're trying to lay every card they have on the table. Nobody wants to have this one be a runaway for Tim Richmond, but maybe Harry Hyde gave Richmond the unfair advantage.
4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th here. It is Bonnet going to the inside, passing Morgan Shepherd, taking 4th. Here comes Ricky Rudd into 5th, Shepherd back to 6th, and that is Bill Elliott running in 8th position.
They've taken the gloves off now. They are scrapping for every spot they can get. Ricky Rudd, who really we neglected so often in the early going here, was poised in position, ready to get into the hunt. He's done that right now. He's being posted there in the 3rd spot. Right in front is Tim Richmond. In 2nd is Dale Earnhardt. Then Rudd comes into play.
Now Jeff Bodine passes Dale Earnhardt. There you can see them as they go into turn number 3. Bodine has moved into 2nd position. He is really charging toward the front, but he has that much interval right there. Richmond, now Bodine. There's that much separation between 1st and 2nd.
Now here's where the strategy can go awry. Let's take a look at Tim Richmond as he circuits the racetrack, especially in the corners, and compare. You see the way Bodine is running there. Very nice and easy. The car has its own head. He's running quite well. Now let's look at Richmond, see if there's any kind of a squirreliness to Richmond. Is the car pointing towards the wall? Well, not too bad. Let's see if we can see, because he may be using worn tires even though they're a good set. They could go away on him, and it could cost him the spot because Bodine's closing.
There is less than a second interval between first and second as Bodine continues to move in on the leader, Tim Richmond. We go back and take a look at the pass.
Here is the pass for second spot. Earnhardt is up on the high side. Bodine just rides the roller coaster down out of turn 2, and he's got the spot right there. Now, Bodine just gets enough. Now, isn't that... Whoa, look at that. Caution is out on the racetrack, and Bodine comes to the stripe.
Oh, it was close, but Richmond beat him to the line. The caution is out. Why?
The report is that there is debris on the racetrack, some metal down here in one of the corners, and they're going to have to go back and try and pick it up. And you can see from the looks of that speed shot that there has been some precipitation, but not enough for that to be the reason for the yellow flag. But boy, that was a close call for Tim Richmond. And there is the debris out on the racetrack. Hard to believe that that could create a problem, but you wouldn't want to run over that right there down before the start-finish line and cut a tire, especially at this juncture. So the field is under caution. The safety car has pulled out directly in front of the field in turn 1. Tim Richmond stays out, as does Bodine and Earnhardt. Now it will be a game of monkey see, monkey do. Should one of the front runners elect to come onto pit road, then you'll have to make a decision in consultation with the crew chief and the driver as to whether you follow suit and come in, or do like Tim Richmond did and elect to stay out. Now they've pulled the metal off the racetrack. There you can see one of the NASCAR officials carrying it back over the wall. Just some sheet metal. Nothing too major, but you wouldn't want to run over it. We've got 191 laps completed, Bob, and this thing is official. And as we said, under green flag conditions, it looks like it could go just at any moment right down to the checkered flag the way these guys are racing.
Unfortunately, Mother Nature was just not cooperative with us here today, and it caused us to have about a 2-hour and 15-minute downtime, and we're going to have to break away now for coverage of the golf tournament in Memphis in just a few moments. But please be assured that we will be back to update you on what's going on here at Darlington, and certainly we'll have the finish of the race just as soon as it occurs. And it could occur quite soon because, as we have mentioned, the dark clouds are gathering in, and if we are going to continue the bad weather that we have had all weekend, it could rain at any moment. We're sorry, but the rain has just really caused this problem that we are going to experience here this afternoon. There's the top 5: Tim Richmond, Jeff Bodine, Earnhardt, Neil Bonnet, and Ricky Rudd, with 192 of 367 laps completed. And there are the second 5: Bill Elliott, Darrell Waltrip, Cale Yarborough, Buddy Baker, and Bobby Allison. Right now, we're going to switch you to Memphis, Tennessee for the golf tournament that's going on right there, but we will be back with updates here at Darlington. Now here's Roger Twyble. The pace car is pulling off the racetrack, and we are going to go back to racing conditions. And there you can see the scoreboard saying that there are 192 laps completed. And the field about to get the green once again, with Tim Richmond leading them down to the line. Green flag comes out again. Bodine is second, Earnhardt third, as the scramble for position occurs into turn number 1.
And you are scrapping for every single position right now. Neil Bonnet is shown in the 4th spot. Ricky Rudd is 5th. And look at the advantage that Richmond streaks away from Bodine, the advantage between 1st and 2nd. They have pulled away. They really came up through the gearbox quickly.
The Hendrick cars are still on top. That's where they started, 1st and 2nd, and they're still running that way. With Richmond, the pole sitter, leading, and a yellow flag, a crash in turn number 3. At least spins. Rick Wilson among those involved. Our in-car camera car slides to the infield. And there were, I think, a couple of other cars that did a spin down there. There's some debris on the racetrack, so another yellow comes out.
Rusty Wallace looking more like a modified than a Winston Cup car. He's had really a tough day. First the shock absorber problem, now the hood's been all peeled off the car, but he continues to run around here, and one of the reasons is what they call the Winston Cup point standings, not only for the front 3 positions, but all the way back through the top 20. R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company pays hefty checks at the end of the season, and Wallace is in the hunt for that as well.
So not much of a green flag period did we have on that one. And you can see that there are a few more evidences of rain falling on the speedway, as our camera lens there had a couple of drops on it. Now Rick Wilson, he comes into the pit area to check the tires. The pace car moves out onto the track with its yellow light blinking atop it, slowing the field down. Wilson now stops in his pit area, and here's Jerry Punch.
Brings the Kodak car to a halt, and Tony Glover and the crew will go and change right side tires. You see that damage on the front of the car. They also have a crack in the windshield, which we talked about earlier. We saw from the in-car camera that has been managed with some tape on the windshield. They will be trying to beat and prise some of the sheet metal away where they did come into contact with the concrete wall. Now changing left side tires, but tire wear probably is not a problem here. They think they may have cut a tire down on the car. Tony Glover motions to me right front tire possibly may have gone down and produced that spin over and contact with the wall. They still are trying to get the car out as they work feverishly now off the jack, and they're holding this momentarily to get that right rear tire and sheet metal pulled away. Tony Glover signaling to his driver, now trying to get their loose. Now they get him down and off the jack and away. That's the damaged Kodak car now moving down pit road.
So a long pit stop for Rick, but he's going back out there into competition. And the field continues to be slowed under caution. 196 laps completed. Back in a moment. Back at Darlington, and Tim Richmond has decided to finally come in for a pit stop. Now we're going to go back green in a couple of laps. Strategy at its utmost here.
Well, the strategy just earlier before the rain delay. Let's go to Dick Berger and he can explain it.
Well, basically what happened here was Richmond and his crew looked at the sky earlier. They saw rain clouds. They thought, well, if the rain comes, we sure don't want to get caught in the pits. They wanted to stay in the lead. Well, the rain has stopped. We're going to get this race underway again. So Richmond could not have gone much past another 30 laps or so without stopping for fuel. So he's come in now. He's got 4 tires and a full load of fuel. Meanwhile, down pit road, Jeff Bodine, who has been his nemesis all day, also had 4 tires and a full load of fuel. So those two guys are ready to go.
Bob, Tim Richmond's last pit stop came on lap 152. That's when he stopped for fuel. So as Dick Bergeron alluded to, he had to come in. He was almost out of precious gasoline.
211 laps completed right now, as Jeff Bodine now has the lead with Dale Earnhardt second. We'll watch the pace car as it comes down the straightaway. When it crosses the line, if it shuts off its light, it means that we will go back to green next time around, and it does.
And Buddy Baker has come into the pits, as has Harry Gant. And Jerry Punch has got a very quick comment about Dale Earnhardt, who's running in second position. Jerry?
Earnhardt has radioed into the pits and told his crew chief, Kurt Shelburne, he has a visibility problem, that the oil mixed with the water from the rain has produced a problem with the windshield. He's having a little bit of difficulty seeing out the front of the car. So he'll be able to make it, but he may have to back off a little early going in the corner.
I find that hard to believe that Dale Earnhardt would ever back off going into a corner, visibility or no visibility.
So it's going to be a return to racing when they come down next time. It'll be Bodine, Earnhardt, Neil Bonnet, Ricky Rudd, and Bill Elliott, your top 5. Now, Tim Richmond has fallen in at the back of the pack. He is in 11th position, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly he moves up through the field. Buddy Baker, who also made the stop for fuel, is in 12th spot, and those are the 12 cars that are on the lead lap. Here comes the field out of turn number 4, and the green flag is waving already. So we're back to racing with 213 circuits completed.
Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip made some quick moves to the inside trying to gain some position, but there was some bumping going on between he, Morgan Shepherd, Darrell Waltrip, and Bobby Allison, and it all went for naught. Meanwhile, up front, there's the battle for second spot between Neil Bonnet and Dale Earnhardt. And there's your leader, Jeff Bodine.
And the car between first and second is Dave Marcus, and Neil Bonnet goes to the inside of Earnhardt and moves into second position. And Dave Marcus, that orange car, number 71, blocking perhaps the progression of Dale Earnhardt enough so that Bonnet was able to take second spot away.
And look who's lurking in fourth spot. That is Ricky Rudd one more time in the Bud Moore prepared Ford Thunderbird. He's right on the rear bumper of Dale Earnhardt. Rudd's in the thick of things.
Bud Moore has 3 wins here at Darlington as a car owner, and Ricky Rudd is certainly in the hunt, but Earnhardt is too.
Boy,
he moves
Earnhardt,
inside and just blasts around Bonnet.
Like he was shot out of a cannon. He just took the spot right back.
Behind Ricky Rudd, it is Bill Elliott, then Darrell Waltrip, Bobby Allison, Morgan Shepherd, Cale Yarborough, and Bobby Hillin Jr. Then comes Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker as they are not having a real easy time moving up through the traffic.
Well, race traffic at its best is difficult here, so they've got to maintain their poise and composure and do it not in 1 or 2 laps, but maybe in 6 or 7. Meanwhile, Bodine is just pulling away from Earnhardt. Earnhardt, not to make light of the visibility problem, I'm sure he does have his hands full, but at least with the clear sailing he's got right now, he can carry it a little deeper in the corner than he would, let us say, if we were passing some lap traffic. Let's take a look at what the visibility would be like inside the car. It's not that bad on Rick Wilson's car, but remember, Wilson and company had extended time on pit road. You can see the dicing with the battered and bruised remains of Jim Sauter's car and Mike Waltrip. Wilson gets around Waltrip, but they've had a long time to clean that windshield. Meanwhile, the battle back up front. With only 150 laps to go, it's a dandy.
That is Ricky Rudd in number 15 and Bill Elliott in number 9 going for 4th position, and Darrell Waltrip is right there also. Rudd right now in 4th as they go down the backstretch. Let's see the tactic used by Bill Elliott. He sneaks right up on the back bumper of that Motorcraft Ford, but can't make the pass. Now let's see what happens in turn 3. He's on the low side of the racetrack, pulling alongside Ricky Rudd, and Bill Elliott moves into 4th, and here comes Waltrip right behind him.
A great move by Bill Elliott. Elliott sized up the handling conditions on Ricky Rudd's car. He let Ricky have all the racetrack he needed, let him go into the corner as deep as he possibly could, and then he just followed him down to the inside and passed him very nicely.
So Bill Elliott, last year's winner here, is now in 4th position, but the leader, Jeff Bodine, is just pulling away from the field. He has opened up a pretty good interval between himself and second position. It is just about 2 1/3 seconds. The interval between Jeff Bodine in the lead and Dale Earnhardt in second place.
Now, Bodine and Earnhardt, both of them are looking for the $100,000 bonus. The other driver, well, you know his name, none other than Bobby Allison, the winner of the Talladega Winston 500. He's up in the thick of things now, but we've got a crash in turn 1. H.B. Bailey walloped the outside retaining wall. He gathered it back in, however.
HB started 35th and was running 16th, although 2 laps down when he made contact with the wall. He's moving rather nicely, though, under his own power, but the yellow flag does come out to slow us once again.
And now they will race back to the stripe, so Bodine stays in the throttle as HB begins his tour around the racetrack. Bodine is out of it. He's not running it full racing song, but he wants to make sure that nobody sneaks by him in case the weather does come back. Here comes Jeff Bodine, trying to do better than 3rd in the 1986 rendition of the Southern 500.
And it'll be Earnhardt, Bonnet, Elliott, and Waltrip in that order behind the leader. This is our 10th caution period of the afternoon. So the Darlington International Raceway, the track too tough to tame, has taken its toll, but none of the crashes has been of a serious nature. Richard Petty began things very early in the contest when he smacked the wall coming out of corner number 4 on the front stretch, and he had to retire because of it. But all the other crashes have been of a relatively minor nature. Now we're going to see some pit stops again as the leaders come in.
All the front runners are going down for pit stops, and let's go to our pit commentator.
Here's a Wrangler Chevrolet making its stop down pit road as he just about gets tagged by Neil Bonnet as both those cars pitting nose to tail here in the pits. Kirk Shelburne and the crew going to work on the car number 3 for Dale Earnhardt. Now, during the last pit stop, they did not change tires. They only took on fuel. They wanted to get back out before it began to rain. As the Wrangler Chevrolet crew now will change the left side tires, a 4-tire change there. Just in front of them is the car number 12. That's the Budweiser car of Neil Bonnet changing tires. As the Earnhardt crew now trying to get the car in and out. Further down pit road is Dick Berggren.
It was a long stop for Jeff Bodine, and several cars have gone out in front of him, including Darrell Waltrip and the 47 of Morgan Shepherd. Finally, not the first one out, but everybody down this end of pit road did the same thing as they did up by you, Jerry. 4 tires and a full load of fuel. The sky now looks good, so these guys are going to have to race, and they're going to have to race for a while.
Ricky Rudd was the first out of the pits after that stop. Morgan Shepherd second out, and then Darrell Waltrip. Now, Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker, neither one pitted. You remember they came in late in the most recent caution period for fuel. They chose not to come in this time, so it's Richmond and Baker first and second in the race right now. Then Rudd will be third, followed by Morgan Shepherd in 4th position.
Well, that was a good move by Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker. As you said, they elected to stay out, and they have, by order of attrition, they have moved back up into 1st and 2nd positions. And what a good run for Buddy Baker. Last time we saw him run this strongly was in the Firecracker 400 at Daytona. Now, he ran well also in Talladega in some of the super speedways, but this is a good run for Buddy Baker, and he wants to win the Southern 500 bad.
So once again, the pace car is leading the field, as it has done many, many times during this what seems to be long afternoon, and we've still got a lot of laps to go in this Southern 500. At the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina, it is Tim Richmond, Buddy Baker, and Ricky Rudd running in the top 3 positions. We are under caution again because of an accident up in turn number 2 involving H.B. Bailey. Not a serious accident by any stretch of the imagination. H.B. just got the car a little too high on the racetrack and bumped the outside wall.
Yes, he did, but everything's okay for H.B. Bailey. He continued under his own way. But Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker, they did not pit during this caution period, and they've managed to work their way to the front of the pack, and we're right back into a hot Southern 500, Bob.
It's Morgan Shepherd running in 4th position right now. Darrell Waltrip is 5th. In 6th position is Bobby Hillin Jr. In 7th is Jeff Bodine. 8th is Dale Earnhardt. 9th is Bill Elliott. And 10th is the number 12 car of Neil Bonnet. That is the way they're running with 223 laps completed at Darlington. Now back to Memphis. We are about to go green once again for the Southern 500. Here comes the field out of turn number 4. It's going to be Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker in 1st and 2nd position. Now, neither Richmond nor Baker pitted. However, Baker is at a little bit of a disadvantage because he got only gas on the 212th lap and has not had a tire change since lap 180, so he may not be as quick on the racetrack as some of the others. There is a scramble for position as Earnhardt and Jeff Bodine head toward the front.
Well, they've got to carve their way through heavy race traffic, hopefully like a hot knife through butter. But really, the guy up front, Tim Richmond, he's been there all afternoon doing well. There's what it looks like in the back of the field in the Southern 500. Rick Wilson, with all the problems that he's had, still working hard, comes up along Mike Waltrip, takes the high side as they go through turn 1, tries to keep the car. He's real close to Waltrip. Look at him sawing the wheel, just trying to hold on to control. They come down out of it. He checked his mirror, checked up a little bit, stayed in the throttle. You can hear it in the background. Hear him coming up through the gear. That isn't the gearbox, that's the RPMs. He got out of the throttle just for a second. Now it starts to build back up again. Backed off it for a second.
Some great pictures from the in-car camera of Rick Wilson in the Kodak-sponsored Oldsmobile, as he has had his problems during the course of the afternoon and is not in the top 10. Now, Jack, the question becomes not one of rain, but of darkness. We are perhaps going to have to end this race prematurely because of darkness.
We might be a little premature in saying that. We've probably got a good hour and 15 minutes left of good solid daylight here. It'll all be predicated on just how many more caution flags we have. If we start to have a rash of yellow fever, which we generally do in the late stages of the Southern 500, we could have this thing shortened because of darkness rather than inclement weather.
Well, we still got almost 140 laps to go in this race, so that could become a factor. There is Tim Richmond leading Buddy Baker and Ricky Rudd and Morgan Shepherd down across the stripe once again.
And Richmond is not pulling away to the size of advantage that he had over, let's say, Jeff Bodine and Dale Earnhardt before this caution flag. I would say that Rudd, Shepherd, and of course your second place runner Baker have really got some strength there. Baker is showing an awful lot right now.
Now Buddy Baker beginning to put some space between himself and Ricky Rudd. Morgan Shepherd and Darrell Waltrip running right behind Rudd down the straightaway. And there is Jeff Bodine also right in the thick of things. And not too far behind Bodine is Dale Earnhardt. Now Morgan Shepherd to the low side of the racetrack, looking like he was interested in third position from Ricky Rudd. But it's a single file formation as they once again go down the backstretch. Shepherd approaching Rudd, and Rudd just a little sideways there.
You can see him wagging the tail of that car just a bit. Morgan Shepherd capitalizes on it, but more so comes Jeff Bodine. He's going to try and stab around Darrell Waltrip. He does it. He's going to stay down there and try and get Rudd in the process too.
And is he going to do it? Oh, Bodine is sideways, and for the second time during the race, he almost lost it. Look at Earnhardt, though, make a move on Waltrip and pick up a position.
Boy, that was just incredible. Not only was Bodine sideways, but he was looking for a hole, a place to get back in where he could gather it up. But there was a problem with Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip was alongside of him. The door was shut. We almost had a potential catastrophe there. Let's look at it again in slow motion replay here. Now, you see, Bodine is loose. He starts to lose the handle just a little bit. Comes up into Rudd. Right now he's side by side. They're okay here, but now it starts to break away from him. Now look at Waltrip. Waltrip goes to the outside. He had the door closed. Now watch Earnhardt to the inside. Just like a cobra, strikes so quickly.
Earnhardt saw all of it happening in front of him, and he said, oh, goody, here's my chance. And he went to the low side and passed Darrell Waltrip for position. Now Ricky Rudd is beginning to fall back as Bill Elliott moves alongside in turn number 2. Rudd, though, able to put a half a car length, now a full car length between himself and Bill Elliott, as Harry Gant is also right there running with Bill Elliott, but Gant is many laps off the pace.
2-4 Thunderbirds. Not quite the class of the field this afternoon, but they've shown the scars that they've been in one tough one here in the Southern 500. And Rudd really has done a very commendable job, Bob. He's such a quiet individual. He often goes unnoticed in a lot of our calls of races unless he's up front for the victory.
There is the interval between first and second. Tim Richmond and Buddy Baker. And Buddy Baker has just had a terrific afternoon. In fact, he is closing in, it appears, but so is Bill Elliott on Ricky Rudd. Rudd running 7th and Elliott in 8th. But look at Buddy Baker close within 3-4 car lengths.
Best finish for Buddy Baker was in the Talladega 500. Actually, that would have been the Winston 500. He finished 3rd. The Michigan 400, the first race. The Miller American 400, he finished 4th. At the Firecracker 400, he was running real strong, in contention for the victory until he had a late race problem. He finished a disappointed 14th. This team is coming together, Bob Jenkins. Could be a win today. You don't know. He's closed on Tim Richmond.
He is right up on the back bumper of Tim Richmond, as a matter of fact, as D.K. Ulrich in the number 6 car is in front of the leaders, now is passed easily by the leaders, and Baker showing a little bit of tire smoke, perhaps, on the right side of that race car as he came out of turn number 2. But still, he's definitely within striking distance of Tim Richmond. Connie Saylor, a number 64, moves low on the racetrack to allow the faster cars to pass on the outside. The story of this race at the moment is Buddy Baker in the Southern 500. He has really closed in on the leader, Tim Richmond. He was within just a few car lengths of him. Now there is Morgan Shepherd, followed by Dale Earnhardt, third and fourth. Fifth is Jeff Bodine, and sixth is Darrell Waltrip. Tim Richmond continues to lead, but Baker is definitely closing with 239 laps completed. Back to Memphis. At the Southern 500, it is Tim Richmond leading, but Buddy Baker is definitely within striking distance. Buddy has closed the gap, has been within a car length, but you can see now that there is a bit of a advantage for Tim Richmond here. Let's go down to the pit area and visit the Buddy Baker pit.
I'm standing with the crew chief, Doug Reichert. Until a couple of weeks ago, this man was in the Neil Bonnet pits, and now you've taken over the Buddy Baker team. You got to feel awfully good about the way your driver's running.
Well, right now the car's running pretty good. We had trouble earlier in the pit, and we lost position on the racetrack. So we chose to top off the car that stopped before last, which enabled us to get back up to the front. And when all the leaders pitted, that really got us back up to the front behind Richmond. And now we're holding our own. So we got our track position back. The chassis is pretty good, so we should be right with them the rest of the race.
This young man is only 26 years old. He was the reason Dale Earnhardt won the Winston Cup Championship in 1980. He was the crew chief. Now he's with Buddy Baker, and they hope to get a win here today.
There you can see Buddy was the winner of the 1970 Southern 500. He also won the Trans-South 500 here in 1971. He has 27 previous starts in the Southern 500. This is his 28th race.
Bob, Doug Reichert explained something that's very interesting. As we watch a battle back there in third position, it looked like Dale Earnhardt was going to try and make the pass on Morgan Shepherd, and he does. But boy, he almost loosed it. He gathers it back in. He went in way deep into turn number one, trying to keep that spot away from Morgan Shepherd after getting it. Wow. Now let's see if Bodine is able to make a pass as well. No. Well, things have settled down. What I was going to say is Reichert showed in what he was explaining to you just exactly how you can use pit strategy to gain you an advantage on the racetrack. He used it. They topped off the fuel, didn't change tires, took a little less time in the pits, and lo and behold, he put his driver back in second position, Buddy Baker. Let's take a look at the replay of that pass by Dale Earnhardt.
And the slide that occurred afterwards.
All right, there's Morgan Shepherd. Earnhardt makes the move out of turn 4. Now they've got the whole front straightaway to accomplish the pass. They're side by side when they come to the stripe. Now Earnhardt has got to carry it in as deeply as possible to gain the position and get back in front of Shepherd. He does, but it's deep. The car begins to break traction. You can see the tire smoke, but he gathers it in. He's all right.
So Dale Earnhardt now moves into third place. Fourth is Morgan Shepherd, and fifth, Jeff Bodine. And there is Shepherd and Bodine running for position. Morgan Shepherd, the winner at Atlanta. And Jeff Bodine, twice a winner this year on the Winston Cup Trail. Now here is Dale Earnhardt, who has caught Buddy Baker. So a few laps ago, Baker was in a position to challenge for the lead. Now he has dropped back and stands the chance of losing second spot to Dale Earnhardt. We'll see how things go. Earnhardt, once again, high in that corner, and I'm not so sure about what Earnhardt isn't handling all that well, although he is moving quite well out there.
One thing about Dale Earnhardt, whether the car handles well or not, he will get 100% out of the vehicle. He is burning that right rear tire, but he's making the pass now for that second position by Buddy Baker. They come out of turn 4, reminiscent of the Shepherd pass, but Baker just says nothing doing and closes the door on Dale Earnhardt.
And Dale very wisely just moves back behind Buddy and says, I will not take a chance of losing the car, as I almost did a couple of laps ago when he passed in for another position. Dale Earnhardt won the Southern 500 back in 1982. And now we'll see if he makes a move again. They're in turn number 3, and Earnhardt moves alongside and does pass Buddy Baker, and Earnhardt is second.
And he set him up just a little bit differently this time. A little sooner in the corner, he started to initiate the pass, and he was able to accomplish it before they came out of turn 4. But let me tell you something. Let's take a look at it once again, because it's going to bring home a point. watch how quick. See, early on, still in turn 3, he darts the nose to the inside. He accomplishes the pass. They're side by side as they hit turn 4. Baker's got to get out of the throttle just a bit, and Earnhardt's got the spot. But one thing that shows too, I think Earnhardt may be holding back just a little bit. Sure, the car's burning the right rear tire, but he's on the hunt for that front position once again.
And not all that far in second position. Tim Richmond is your leader. Richmond has been very, very competitive all race long, but so has Dale Earnhardt, who once again crashed during a qualification attempt late in the week. They had to rebuild this car. He was a second-day qualifier, the fastest on the second day, started 21st, and it was not long before he was up front. And he is in second position right now, about 1.2 seconds behind the leader, Tim Richmond. Buddy Baker now in third position, beginning to fall back just a little bit as Morgan Shepherd moves up to challenge Buddy for that third spot. Let's see what Morgan can do with Buddy. At the end of the backstretch, they go in almost side by side, and Baker holds him off.
There's an example of old tires and fairly new tires. Shepherd's got a newer set of tires on his car than Buddy Baker does. So they're beginning to close on Baker as the laps wind down here. Baker's tires are beginning to show the heat, not necessarily the wear. The heat is building in those tires, and that's dropping him off the pace just a bit. Shepherd and Bodine, though, are right there just sensing that there's a spot available.
We have had a total of 7 leaders during this race and 11 lead changes as Earnhardt is about to, or at least wants very much to go into the lead. He has not led today, and it's very important for him to do so because he picks up 5 bonus points, and all the points he can get very, very important toward that Winston Cup side by side with Richmond. Into turn number 1, Tim holds him off. Earnhardt just cannot make the pass.
Now remember too, you saw it in the screen initially on that initiation of the pass. Mike Waltrip was the lapped car, and Tim Richmond used that lap car of Mike Waltrip to his advantage, trying to hold off Dale Earnhardt. Now they go by Waltrip. Let's see if Earnhardt cocks the hammer on the cannon one more time here.
Well, Richard Childress owns Dale Earnhardt's car. He's with our Jerry Punch.
Richard Childress, you got to be awfully proud of your driver. A lot of folks are saying that he may have been holding a little something back. He moved by Baker like Baker threw out an anchor, and now he's making a move on Tim Richmond.
Well, we've been trying to get the car to work, and we're just getting it to work a little better. And we had the car set up to run late in the race, and if we're around here at the end, I think we'll give him a good run for it.
Have you ever seen a driver as aggressive and anyone able to hold a car in a corner like this guy you've got?
I think he's the best.
Well, that says it all. Richard Childress awfully proud of his driver. He thinks he wants to go to the front and lead this thing.
Well, he's still in second, but boy, I'll tell you, it is a battle on the racetrack. Just 1 car length separates first from second position. Earnhardt down the backstretch, following Tim Richmond, won't make a bid this time.
And Earnhardt can get all that there is out of a race car, and he's doing it right now. He goes to the inside of Tim Richmond. There's the pass. Earnhardt will lead the Southern 500.
Boy, he just, again, like he was shot out of a cannon, does take the lead. He becomes our 8th different leader this afternoon, does pick up 5 bonus points toward the Winston Cup.
Forget the 5 bonus points. What about the $100,000 and almost $500,000 purse here? That's what Earnhardt's looking for.
And it's very definitely among the possibilities as we wind down this Southern 500. But we still have 122 laps to go. 255 are in the books out of 367. We're at the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina, and the lead has changed. Dale Earnhardt has come like a shot from a cannon around Tim Richmond, and Earnhardt now leads this race. By the way, that was the first time that he had led today, just 2 laps ago when he took the lead. It is Buddy Baker running in third position, and Jeff Bodine is fourth, but Earnhardt is the leader at the moment. Let's go back to Memphis, Tennessee. And so the race continues with Dale Earnhardt now entrenched in the lead with Tim Richmond doing the chasing.
But look how far Earnhardt has pulled out in front of Tim Richmond. Now we're going to work some race traffic here, and let's see if Richmond can use that to his advantage, because Earnhardt will be the first through. First one up for grabs is Jim Sauter as they work turns 1 and 2. And Earnhardt went in a little deep there, burned the right rear just a little bit. Now he's going to set Sauter up on the outside.
And he passes Jim Sauter going down the backstretch. Here comes Buddy Baker along with Jeff Bodine running 3rd and 4th. And right behind Jeff Bodine is Morgan Shepherd in that number 47 Race Hill Farms Buick. Shepherd now looks low from Jeff Bodine. Almost passes, but can't do it as he backs off the accelerator to go down the front stretch.
Hard to believe that as wide as this racetrack looks on television, that the groove is just that narrow. You know, we've got to go down to Dick Bergeron because he's with a key player in the pits. Dick?
Well, Harry Hyde, crew chief for Tim Richmond. It looks like your car is getting loose. The tail end seems to be coming out from under him.
Well, we're not too far now from a pit stop, and I think the rain had it tightened up a little bit, and now that it's going a little bit loose. So we'll have to make the corrections when we come in the pit.
How soon do you expect to pit? If you don't get a caution flag, how soon will you come in to do that?
We got about 15, 18 more laps to go.
That's Harry Hyde. He's crew chief for Tim Richmond. Richmond's handle is going away.
So we'll be watching for a pit stop by Tim Richmond before too long. There's Rusty Wallace's car, by the way, running behind Tim Richmond's, and that thing looks like a modified, it's a battered race car that Rusty Wallace is maneuvering around Darlington International Raceway. There's the leader, Dale Earnhardt, passing Kyle Petty in the Wood Brothers number 711 Ford. The Wood Brothers with 8 victories here at Darlington, but they will not get one today.
And Earnhardt has pulled off to a sizable advantage. You heard Harry Hyde say that they've developed a looseness to the car. And you could see it while we were talking to Harry. The car of Tim Richmond would just kind of wobble back and forth. And look, Neil Bonnet, who had run so strong, he's into the pits, and the hood's going up, and that's not a good sign.
Let's go down to Jerry Punch.
Well, Neil Bonnet in the pits, an unscheduled stop as Tim Brewer and the crew looking beneath the car. Smoke came out from underneath the hood when they raised it. Apparently the car shut off on Neil Bonnet. It was not running when he came down pit road. It has been shut off, but it's still not refired as Bonnet now sits in the car, totally frustrated after a good run they had this afternoon. The Budweiser crew trying to decipher the problem. What a terrible break for Neil Bonnet.
Neil was running in 12th position, the last car on the lead lap when he came in for this pit stop. He raises the goggles and disgustedly waits for the crew to try to determine what's wrong with this car.
This has got to be the longest moment for any driver when you're not sure if you're in or you're out, but you know that you're out of the hunt for the lead. Now you've got to get your mind set to go back out there and maybe gain in some Winston Cup points. Now there's Cale Yarborough and Bobby Hillin. They're running in the top 10. Running in the 9th position. That's the battle for 9th. Hillen's got 9th, and Cale Yarborough, who had run strong in the early going, now just seems to settle in there in the battle for the 10th spot as well. And Bobby Allison's in the hunt as well. There's Bobby. He's in the 11th position.
Allison is the final car on the lead lap, and Allison, one of the 3 eligible for the $100,000 bonus today, but I don't think that he is going to be successful in gaining it. But again, anything can happen because we're still a little more than 100 laps away from the conclusion of this Southern 500. Bobby Hillin Jr. leading Cale Yarborough on the racetrack.
Now we should be approximately 10 laps away from a pit stop by Tim Richmond, who is running in 2nd position. But let's also add to the potential pit stop sequence number 88, Buddy Baker. They pitted early. They're going to have to come in a little earlier than the rest of the lead duos. But what a great run by Hillin. And there's your leader, Dale Earnhardt, and he's beginning to pull away from Tim Richmond.
Only 4 races this year has Dale Earnhardt finished out of the top 10. It has been wins and consistency that has put Dale Earnhardt atop the Winston Cup standings heading into this event here this afternoon with a total of 3,075 points. And the question that we put to Dale Earnhardt earlier in the weekend, assess your chances of winning the Winston Cup.
Well, I think every man's got to race his own race for the championship. We're racing ours. Darrell won one race. That didn't win him the championship. I think you've got to race every race from here on out. And as long as I'm ahead, I feel comfortable. I'm not playing catch-up like they are. I'm still up front, and we're going to still run our pace and run our comfortable race like we've been doing and try to win races. And, you know, like I say, we got to run our race. They got to run theirs.
Well, Dale Earnhardt was the Rookie of the Year in 1979, and in his sophomore year, the very next year, 1980, he was the Winston Cup champion, and he's looking for that second Winston Cup in his trophy room this year. Let's go down to Jerry Punch, who's with Neil Bonnet.
Well, Neil Bonnet is the latest retiree from this Southern 500. And Neil, you had a pretty good run going, but what finally put you out?
Well, the car ran exceptional today, and on that last restart, about 10 laps after the restart, felt like it dropped the valve. It's just been missing continuously, and it finally got to where it wouldn't run at all. Just lost the motor.
Can you believe how strong Earnhardt is right now? I mean, he looks like he came back from nowhere, but do you think he might have been holding a little something back for the late part of the race?
Well, on that last restart, I was up there by him. I drove by him. He came back by me like I was tied to a tree, so he's plenty strong.
Well, that's the comments from Neil Bonnet. He thinks Earnhardt's going to be the man to beat.
Well, I would think that most people would agree with that, as Dale has now pulled out to a sizable advantage on second place Tim Richmond. And again, we anticipate a pit stop by Tim Richmond within a few more laps. We'll time the interval here between first and second. The yellow flag is out. The yellow is out. We don't see any cars that has had an accident. Could be debris on the racetrack again, or perhaps rain.
But this is a break for Tim Richmond and for Buddy Baker, because they were going to have to make a green flag stop if the caution hadn't been displayed. Time was running out for them. They only had about 5 or 6 laps before their scheduled stop would have come up.
So the field slows once again. It appears as if Dale Earnhardt will also come in for a pit stop. We could see all the leaders in for a pit stop. Here comes Earnhardt off the 4th turn, and he comes in. He is followed by Tim Richmond, Jeff Bodine, Morgan Shepherd, Buddy Baker, Darrell Waltrip, and others. Let's see how the pit stops go. We're with Dale Earnhardt's crew right now as it goes to work.
Right side tires for Dale Earnhardt. That generally seems to be the bill of fare here for all of the front runners that have come down on pit road. You can see they're going for the right side. We'll just have to wait and see if they're going to go for left sides as well. Report is there may be debris on the backstretch which brought out this caution.
That is the reason for the yellow,
there
and there is the piece of debris that did bring out this caution period, as pit stops are being made here at Darlington. At the Southern 500 at Darlington International Raceway in South Carolina, 271 laps have been completed. We are yellow because of debris on the backstretch. Pit stops are being made. All of the leaders came in for a stop. It's going to be Dale Earnhardt reassuming command of this race, with Tim Richmond running second and Jeff Bodine running in 3rd position. There you can see 271 of 367 laps have been completed. Earnhardt comes in again, back to Memphis. Earnhardt making a second pit stop here. Let's go down to Jerry Punch.
Well, Dale Earnhardt has just come in for a 4-tire change. They want to bring him back in. He said he thinks he may have a tire vibrating on the left side. They're going to rejack the car. They have the car up, have changed left side tires, top up the tank, and he's down and away in the Wrangler Chevrolet.
Well, that's a good feel on the part of a race driver to be able to be out not at full speed and sense that there may be a vibration or a problem with one of the tires. Now, you want to see something that really got a little hairy, watch this. This is the pit stop before that one. He locks it up, slides into his position, almost bought a couple of pit crew members. A couple of tires go flying there. Woo. That was a close call.
Boy, one of those tires weighs a lot, and should it have fallen on that pit crew member, he could have been injured, but fortunately the tire bounced away and there was no problem. Well, it appears as if Jeff Bodine is going to be in the lead now as we go back to green.
And Tim Richmond, then Darrell Waltrip, and then Ricky Rudd. That's the way they're posted on the outside. The cars on the inside are at least one lap down, and they're trying and stay out of the way. And look at Earnhardt. Earnhardt trying to slice by some of that lap traffic. He's like 5 wide as they come across the stripe.
Passing Kyle Petty initially and then trying to find the room to get by others. Well, look who is up front again. It's the Hendrick team with Jeff Bodine leading and Tim Richmond in second position. Boy, these cars have just been so strong all day.
Very consistent as well. They've been up front. They haven't had to make spirited challenges from the back. Every pit stop, they're right there in first or maybe second or third. But the guy that is really just running at 115 to 120% is Dale Earnhardt. He's got to work through some race traffic, but it'll be about 5 or 6 laps and you'll begin to see him as well.
Earnhardt is still at the middle of the pack and trying to thread his way through the traffic. But we can concentrate right now on first and second, Bodine and Tim Richmond.
You know, there's a spirited rivalry between these two teams. Although they're both owned by Rick Hendrick, they're positioned in separate shops. And there's Dale Earnhardt working his way up as we were talking. He's going to go by Dave Marcus, one of the lap cars. There's Bobby Allison directly in front of him and Cale Yarborough in front of Allison. Now Earnhardt's beginning to get into race traffic that races with him. These will be positions that he'll be racing for, namely with Allison and Yarborough. See what Earnhardt can do. Can he dispatch Bobby Allison? Allison's posted in 10th position, so that puts Earnhardt in 11th. Let's see what he does with Allison here.
It looks like he's going to be able to pass him coming out of the corner, perhaps down the straightaway here. Well, no move at the moment. Earnhardt staying behind Bobby Allison as they go into turn number 1. Now let's see what Earnhardt does. A little bit of separation between the two now.
But what he seems to do time after time when he's coming from the back to the front is he exhibits a good amount of patience. He sizes up a car and then he'll make the pass, and that's exactly what he did with Bobby Allison.
And that is the place on the racetrack that it seems Dale has chosen to do most of his passing this afternoon, going into or between turns 3 and 4. That's where he has just passed Bobby Allison. And now Earnhardt moves up to 10th position. The 15th car of Ricky Rudd and Bill Elliott are in a tussle for 4th place.
And Elliott is going to set his sights on that 4th position held by Ricky Rudd, but Rudd seems a little stronger, at least in that east end of the speedway. Boy, what a difference a year makes. Bill Elliott running back there in 9th position. This time last year, he was running for $1 million.
What a great moment in sports history that was a year ago when, talk about odds to overcome, Bill Elliott did overcome the odds and went on to take that checkered flag. But here this weekend, it has not been all that great for him, but he has run very well. Not, though, in a position, at least at the moment, to win the race.
But, you know, Elliott's the one that's so quick to point out that in 1986, granted, he seemed to dominate. Darrell Waltrip went on to win the Winston Cup. But the entire Winston Cup brigade caught up with Bill Elliott. And this year, it's been a highly competitive season. A lot of different makes of cars, a lot of different drivers have scored victories. And that's indicative of the type of show that Bill France Jr. and the entire NASCAR brigade presents 29 times a year, or actually 30 times a year.
We will still have to make one more stop for fuel if the race remains green the rest of the way. Still about 80-some laps to go, 280 out of 367 completed, so everybody is going to have to make one more stop for fuel. So this race is far from over, although at the moment the Hendrick cars are running first and second. And Darrell Waltrip has now moved up to 3rd position.
We have seen the complexion of this race change many times since the drop of the green flag. But the one thing that has been consistent through it has been the presence up front of Jeff Bodine and Tim Richmond. Now, Earnhardt's on the move one more time. He's picked up 2 more spots. He got by Cale Yarborough. And now Earnhardt is being posted in that 8th position because he got by Bobby Hillin as well. So Earnhardt is just picking his way through the traffic.
Earnhardt up to 8th position at the moment, but has a lot of distance to make up before he gets to the front of the field.
But it doesn't look like he's using up much of the race car in the process, and that's the mark of a real good race driver.
It appears to be pretty easy for Earnhardt to pass these cars that are on the lead lap, like Bobby Hillin Jr. and Cale Yarborough, the two that he has just passed. And Cale gets way high going into the first turn and almost loses it. I thought he was going to tag the wall there and slide down the banking, but he gathered it in. A nice job of driving by Cale Yarborough, but that allowed Bobby Allison to close in on him.
So now Cale's going to have to contend with Allison, but there is Bodine, Richmond, and Waltrip. Let's not count Waltrip out of the hunt here.
That's for sure.
You know, a typical Darrell Waltrip race. Be right there. Be right there and run for the end. He's in third, and he's in well within striking distance of your leader, Jeff Bodine.
Last week's winner at Bristol, Tennessee, Darrell Waltrip is running third and is looking pretty strong at the moment. Here are the standings in the Southern 500 with 283 out of 367 completed. It is Dale Earnhardt leading the race. Jeff Bodine leading the race. It is Tim Richmond running second. Third is Darrell Waltrip. Fourth is Ricky Rudd. And fifth is Bill Elliott. And there is the second and third place. But Jeff Bodine at the moment is leading the Southern 500. Let's go back to our golf match in Memphis. At the Southern 500, it is Dale Earnhardt who's continuing to move through the traffic, and he moves into 7th position now, passing Morgan Shepherd there in car number 47. The next car that Earnhardt will have to contend with is Buddy Baker in car number 88, who is in 6th spot.
And that was a close call for Dale Earnhardt when he passed Morgan Shepherd. The car got very loose, and he almost kissed the concrete coming out of turn 4. The tail really wagged on that Wrangler jeans machine of Dale Earnhardt.
Earnhardt is letting it all hang out here as he moves toward the front of the pack. Buddy Baker right ahead of him now, and Bill Elliott is moving ahead of Buddy Baker on the racetrack. And once again, the car sliding high in this first turn. Here comes Cale Yarborough. Let's go to Jerry Punch for a call on this pit stop.
Cale Yarborough brings the Harleys forward to a halt, and Joey Knuckles and the crew will go to work, and they will change 4 tires. A few laps ago, we mentioned Cale got awfully high in turn 1 and in turn 3. They figured he may have a tire going down. Cale said the car was not handling that well. They decided to bring him in, change 4 tires, rather than destroying a race car, possibly injuring a driver. That's a safety measure. They said the car probably could finish, but they're going to come in here and change 4 tires. Now the left side tire is going on. Joey Knuckles, a new crew chief, puts the left front tire on. Battens down the lug nuts. They will drop Cale off the jack. He's down and away in 29 and 2/10 seconds.
You know, you've got to say one thing about that team as we watch Dale Earnhardt set his sights on Buddy Baker. That is the first time that team has worked together. The entire team departed after Michigan, and that's tough for a pit crew to try and get the ballet that's necessary, and they're doing a fine job today.
Cale Yarborough was running in 11th when that pit stop occurred. So now 10 cars are on the lead lap. Running in 10th position is Bobby Allison. Here is Dale Earnhardt trying to find the opportunity to pass Buddy Baker and go into 6th.
Watch the patient setup once again.
There he
sized
goes.
him up. He makes the pass. He does it almost effortlessly.
And in the same place every time, between turns 3 and 4. That is Earnhardt's favorite place to pass. He's now in 6th position. And you can see the tire smoke coming from that car, though, Jack, and I think he may be using it up just a little quicker than he would like.
It's very deceiving, though. I've seen Dale Earnhardt and Richard Childress run their car like that race after race after race, and when another team would have to come in with a blistered tire or one used up, it seems like they've always got plenty. I think it maybe is a little bit of Dale Earnhardt's signature. A little white smoke never hurt anybody.
Winston Cup points leader, Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, 34 years of age. Finished in 8th place in the point standings last year, but now certainly in a very good position this year to win his 2nd Winston Cup. 2 wins here at Darlington in the Southern 582 and in the Trans-South 500 earlier this year.
You can see he is closing on that 3-car battle. That is 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and Earnhardt is solidly in the hunt for those positions as they hurdle to turn 1. Whoa, he almost lost it there.
Again, that car getting sideways on Dale Earnhardt. But he hangs on and loses very little position. Well, we asked Dale Earnhardt earlier in the weekend about his favorite places to pass on this racetrack.
Well, if you can beat the traffic, the slow cars getting into 3, and the other guy gets caught up behind him, you really beat him, you know, through the corner, because he's got to wait on those guys to get through the corner most of the time, but you can't get by them before then. But you can gain a whole corner on the guys. And I've seen guys lose races that way and win races that way. Hopefully it won't happen on Sunday. I think, you know, it'd be better for the fans and myself if I could beat somebody right to the line, you know, racing them. But, you know, traffic plays a big part here.
Traffic does play a big part here, but Earnhardt has been able to move through the traffic almost flawlessly. Right ahead of him now as they come down the straightaway is Elliott, Rudd, and Darrell Waltrip.
Here's where you've got to begin to play your cards properly. He took a look to the outside of Bill Elliott. He's going to get that one as they come out of turn 2. Now, will he set Ricky Rudd up or will he show some patience? He alluded to the fact that he likes turn 3 to try and make a pass. He's there solidly in that 5th position. Is he going to get it? No. Race traffic held him up.
H.B. Bailey in car number 36. The Almeida Auto Parts Pontiac in the lower groove, preventing Dale Earnhardt from moving down there and trying Ricky Rudd. Now Rudd wants 3rd place from Darrell Waltrip, and he gets it, and along comes Earnhardt, so Waltrip may have a problem with that number 11 Chevrolet.
Waltrip faltered just for a bit, and it cost him dearly. It cost him 2 spots. It may cost him a 3rd spot because here comes Bill Elliott downstairs.
The race is for 3rd position here. Earnhardt moving inside of Ricky Rudd. They're side by side headed into turn number 1, and Earnhardt has moved all the way back to 3rd position.
And Elliott has gathered in that spot. He's back to 5th. So, you know, he said he likes to use that 3rd turn to make the pass, and that's what he's been doing so effectively. Coming from the back, he's right back in the hunt.
Well, let's examine the situation and see how much racetrack he has to make up before he gets into a 2nd position battle. Tim Richmond is in 2nd, and it's about a 2.5-second separation between Richmond in 2nd and Earnhardt in 3rd position, and it's about a 1.5-second lead for Jeff Bodine over Tim Richmond. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
And I'm with Junior Johnson. Junior, how is Darrell running? What is the status on your car?
Well, we made a chassis adjustment to last pit stop, and it's just too loose right now. We're going to have to wait till we make another stop and get the car tightened back up, because he's running sideways through the corner, and he can't make it. He just can't stay with him doing that.
Can you tighten it up to win this race?
I think we can tighten it up to be competitive. It's going to be luck whoever wins this race.
It sure is. It's going to be a close finish, and no doubt about that.
8 times here at Darlington, Junior's cars have won a race at Darlington International Raceway. So the record for Junior Johnson is good at this racetrack.
Well, the record is very good for Junior Johnson almost anywhere he runs, and one of the reasons is he's one of the few car owners, along with Bud Moore and Leonard Wood, that have been in this sport for so very long. A driver himself, he ran here in the Southern 500. In fact, the first time he came down here, he relief drove for Gwynn Staley, the late Gwynn Staley. And then he said, hey, that looked like fun. I'm going to go back down, and he went back and raced the following year.
Right now, Darrell Waltrip is back to 6th spot as the lead is continuing to be held by Jeff Bodine. There is Tim Richmond blasting out of turn number 4 in 2nd spot with 2 cars between the 1st and 2nd position. Morgan Shepherd in car number 47 is in 9th, and he has not been running as well in the last few laps as previous. Let's get an explanation of that from the pit area.
Well, Morgan Shepherd having their problems. They think they have a right front tire going down on the car number 47. They want to bring him in and change tires, but they don't want to make 2 pit stops. If they wait 2 or 3 more laps, they can bring him in
everybody will have to make one more stop for fuel. At least that's what we anticipate, unless we have a lengthy caution period.
The race has settled down for the most part, Bob, compared to the early going. Jeff Bodine having a good run out front. Tim Richmond seems to have settled in behind him. You see the separation between Bodine and Richmond. You know, Bodine coming up now on the battered torn remains of Rusty Wallace. But here is the race between Dale Earnhardt and the number 9 of Bill Elliott. Now that's the battle for third spot. Earnhardt, again, wagged the tail of that car. You saw the white smoke. He's getting everything he possibly can out of that car.
Elliott all of a sudden has moved up well, and for the moment there just a few minutes ago was right on Earnhardt's bumper, but now a little bit of racetrack between the two, and Bill Elliott's day continues to go well for him.
And this would have to be perceived as a very good day for Bill Elliott compared to the season that he's had. It's been really a roller coaster ride. Granted, he owns Michigan International Speedway, but for the most part, everywhere else they've gone, it's only been the last few races where they feel like they have finally resolved their problems, whether they be mechanical or with the crew or with the illness with his brother Ernie. But now they feel like they're back on the right track, and that for the rest of this season, and of course in 1987, they will be back, and they will be back strong.
He has won 2 times this year, and both of them have been on Michigan International Speedway. Jeff Bodine is still the leader and will pick up the interval between first and second as far as time is concerned between Bodine and second place Tim Richmond.
Well, actually, the one that would even be more important than that is to see the interval between Bodine and third place Dale Earnhardt, because Earnhardt is the guy that is actually on the move. There's Earnhardt at the tail. Let's see what the interval will be. All right, that lap, it's 3.6 seconds.
The gap is definitely narrowing. We'll do it again this time around and see how the two compare. Jimmy Means in car number 52 being lapped on the backstretch. Bodine moving through turns 3 and 4. When he crosses the line, we'll start this stopwatch again and see if the interval widens or closes. And it closes just slightly. It's almost identical though.
But it's still just a slight interval, but you see the difference between the two drivers. One, Jeff Bodine, he's not having the greatest handling car himself, but it doesn't look, at least visually, like he's using the race car as hard.
Buddy Baker and Darrell Waltrip running close together on the racetrack for 6th spot. You heard Junior Johnson mention a few laps ago that the car is not handling like they would like for it to, and will make adjustments on it when he comes in for a stop next time.
Now here's the time in a race that gives crew chiefs ulcers, because not only do they have to watch their car. Now look at this. There are 3 separate stopwatches. What this guy is doing is he's trying to time first, second, and third, and look who it is. It's Gary Nelson and his crew, and they're radioing this information to the leader, Jeff Bodine. They want to let him know where the competition is, who's gaining, who's falling back, trying to maintain some consistency. But in the middle of all that, he's going to have to make the decision in terms of chassis adjustment and when to pit. That's why I personally don't ever want to be a crew chief. I don't think I can stand the stress or the pressure.
60 laps to go. Jeff Bodine, and there is a pass for second as Earnhardt goes to the inside of Tim Richmond in turn 4 and moves into second. Now, the only other competitor that he needs to catch up to is the leader, Jeff Bodine.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back to the racetrack, he's back. Earnhardt's on the move, Bob.
The question is, can he catch the leader, Jeff Bodine? That's a question we'll answer when we come back to more of the Southern 500. we are slowly clicking the laps off. 311 now in the books, and Jeff Bodine is the leader, but Dale Earnhardt is closing, and Tim Richmond is also not too far behind. Without question, though, the man that we have our eye on, more so than Jeff Bodine, the leader, is Dale Earnhardt, because he has moved up quickly through the traffic and now is within just a few seconds. Jerry Punch with a comment on pit strategy the rest of the way.
All the drivers are going to have to make one final stop. Dale Earnhardt can go to about lap 340 before he'll have to stop for fuel. He's run the car awfully hard because of that late pit stop and the double pit stop, the miscue in the pits. He had to come back toward the front. He has worn his tires out. He will have to make one stop in about 25 or 30 laps from now. He thinks he can make that stop and come home victorious. Let's check on Jeff Bodine's strategy with Dick Berggren.
Well, thanks, Jeff. They say that down here, Bodine can go almost, but not quite all the way. The interesting thing will be this. If we stop, and we're going to have to stop at some point, under the yellow flag, will they take 2, will they take 4? If you take 4 tires, you can go faster. But if one of these two teams takes only 2 tires, they're going to get out of the pits quicker. So strategy in the pits may well determine the outcome of this event. Bob?
Well, there is a passenger car that attempted to get onto the racetrack. This is reminiscent of Talladega here. They were actually trying to cross the racetrack. That's down here in turn number 1, where there is an exit from the infield outside the racetrack when there is nothing going on. But certainly when there are cars on the racetrack, you can't get across the track, and that young lady tried to do so.
Why would anybody want to leave right now?
A lot more action to watch between now and the end of the race. Bob Jenkins, Jack Arute, Dick Berggren, and Jerry Punch covering the Southern 500 at Darlington International Raceway for you. Jeff Bodine is the leader, but the man on the move is Dale Earnhardt. He is involved in a terrific battle right now for second position with Tim Richmond. Everybody's going to have to make one more pit stop, and strategy in the pits could determine the outcome. We will have the finish of this race live on ESPN. Right now, back to golf in Memphis. I'm not so sure that the battle is for second position, and look at Tim Richmond go inside Earnhardt between turns 3 and 4, where Earnhardt has chosen to pass all day. This time Earnhardt gets passed by Tim Richmond for second, and Bill Elliott is also moving past Dale Earnhardt.
Bob, something has happened to Dale Earnhardt's car. Either he has used the tires up, or fuel is becoming a precious commodity. You heard, though, Richard Childress told Jerry Punch that he wasn't going to have to run that long, but now the report is that there may be some rain on the backstretch.
We can look at the puddles over there in the pit area and see that the rain is beginning to come down. Here comes Jeff Bodine crossing the stripe, and Dale Earnhardt is going to be making a pit stop. Here comes Earnhardt into the pits. Jerry Punch will describe this pit stop by Dale Earnhardt.
The problem with Dale Earnhardt's car, he had the right front tire going down on the Wrangler Chevrolet. And he radioed into the tire, must be going down, I can't handle the car. So this pit stop is about 15 or 20 laps early than what they had scheduled to make. They will change right side tires. Kirk Shelburne and the crew have the right side tires changed. He's down and away, 14 and 2/10 seconds. Good pit stop for Earnhardt.
But he's going to go a lap down. Jeff Bodine goes into the first turn while Dale Earnhardt struggles to get back up to speed, and he is down a lap. So now Jeff Bodine is the leader.
But look
it's
who's
a battle for second between Richmond and Bill Elliott.
And that is a heated one, because right in front of them is Dale Earnhardt, and all of a sudden, look, Bill Elliott is back in the hunt. Tim Richmond, well, he's been there all day, but these gentlemen will have to pit shortly as well, and this will shovel it considerably. So there's an example. Bodine running a fairly conservative race, didn't use things up quite so bad. When you saw the pictures of that pit stop, you could see the blisters on that right front tire that they removed. Let's go to Jerry Punch for this report.
Here's the right front tire that came off of the Earnhardt car. You can see where the tire was cut. Nothing wrong with the tire itself. It was cut on the racetrack. The tire began to leak down. The rubber peeled away. This tire could cost Earnhardt $100,000 in that Winston bonus.
Jerry, we can still see the smoke coming off of that tire, although it's been off the car for a few minutes. Now Elliott right behind Tim Richmond in a bid to take over second spot. The slow car to the inside is Buddy Arrington in number 67. And the report is that the rain is beginning to come down even harder now along the main straightaway. We can see the rain definitely making an imprint in the puddles over in pit road.
And Gary Nelson, the crew chief of your lead car, is talking repeatedly to Jeff Bodine on the radio, keeping him appraised of what the situation is. And there is the battle for second position. Richmond and Elliott, they see the splatters on the windshield. They know that this thing could be going down to the final few laps, and they're looking for a position. Richmond's got it in second, but Elliott would like to take it away. Bodine, he's a little further out front.
Well, Jeff Bodine is out front, and he is among the 3 drivers eligible for the $100,000 bonus. And at the moment, Jeff Bodine looks pretty good in his bid for that. His lead over Tim Richmond and Bill Elliott, just about 5 seconds.
We talk about the rain. Look at this. They're racing, but they're holding an umbrella in the pits. A little schmoozing between the Winston Cup official and Gary Nelson. Is Nelson trying to drive a point home?
But out on the racetrack, it is still a battle for second position as we get this comment from Dick Berggren.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing down here with that umbrella. Nelson's wife was underneath it for several laps waiting for the rain. I'm going to tell you what, the rain is intensifying down here, and Gary Nelson is a strategist for sure. He's still standing under the umbrella, talking to the Winston Cup officials, explaining to them, it's raining, we'd like to stop the race. The reason is he's in the lead. That's why he wants to stop the race.
But let's keep you appraised, too, of the track conditions right now, Dick. From our vantage point, they still look fairly dry. It still looks like they can run a few more laps before they would have to bring it in due to rain.
That's correct. The track conditions I don't think are bad yet, but at the rate it's raining, it's not going to take a whole lot longer before track conditions are going to go downhill. Right now it's probably still okay, but the rain is coming.
Now the key is, can Dale Earnhardt get his lap back before this caution flag comes out? Look at this. Earnhardt is closing in on your leader, Jeff Bodine. Unfortunately, it's not for the lead, but just for the lap.
Let's see if the yellow flag will come out this time because of rain or whether they will stay at speed. Earnhardt is approaching that Jeff Bodine car. No caution flag at the moment. Dale will continue to try to get the lap back, though Alan Kulwicki moves to the low side of the racetrack to allow both Earnhardt and Bodine to pass.
Now remember, Bodine, he's a prime candidate for that $100,000 bonus. He was the winner in the first Jewel, the Daytona 500. Hasn't been able to win much since then, but if he could win the Southern 500 today, it won't be $1 million for Bodine, but it would be a $100,000 check. But here's Earnhardt. He wants to get back out on that lead lap. He's going to challenge Bodine. No, not enough. He's still 1 lap down.
The Southern 500 at Darlington International Raceway, and we have a car that has apparently come in contact with the wall, and the yellow flag is out. Can Dale Earnhardt get his lap back? He's going to make a bid here. As they come through turns 3 and 4, they are racing to the yellow flag. Here is Earnhardt going to the low side, but Bodine is trying to block him. Now Earnhardt has to go high on the racetrack, slowing his progress. Let's see if he does. They cross the stripe. No! Jeff Bodine holds off that challenge by Dale Earnhardt. That was not for the lead, remember, but it was a bid by Dale Earnhardt to get his lap back. He had to pit a few laps ago because of a bad tire on the front part of the car, and that put him a lap down. He simply could not make up the lap. The reason that we are yellow is because of a incident involving Phil Parsons. He has made contact with the wall once again, moves by the main straightaway here with some body damage showing. That's the reason for the yellow. We also have had rain here at Darlington in the last few minutes, and we welcome you to this update from our golf match.
Boy, what a heads-up move by Jeff Bodine. He knew that he wanted to keep Dale Earnhardt 1 lap down, and he covered the spot sufficiently, more than sufficiently, as they hurtled towards the start-finish line, knowing that the caution was out. Nothing that was out of the ordinary. It's what you do. When the leader is leading, it's his racetrack, and he can cover it. He did it nicely and with a lot of class, and I'm sure Dale Earnhardt would agree.
So Jeff Bodine is the leader here at the Southern 500. Tim Richmond second, Bill Elliott third, Ricky Rudd fourth, Dale Earnhardt fifth, Buddy Baker is sixth, Morgan Shepherd seventh, eighth is Bobby Allison, and ninth is Bobby Hillin Jr. Those cars on the lead lap, and in 10th position and lap down is Dale Earnhardt. Now here is Buddy Baker running sixth in for a pit stop. And he pulls back out onto the racetrack. 331 laps have been completed. Our big question at the moment, is it raining too hard to resume this action? For the moment, we are yellow at Darlington. Back to Memphis. At the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina, we are back to green this time around with 334 laps completed.
And a good move by Bobby Allison and some of the other guys that are up front. They elected to pit during this caution and take on fuel, while some of the other runners have elected to stay out, namely Jeff Bodine. Only time will tell whether that's a good move or a bad move. Earnhardt gets his spot back, though. He is now at the tail end of the lead lap.
So that puts now another car on the lead lap. That gives us 10. And Earnhardt will try to stay out there just in case we do have another yellow, and that would allow him to encircle the entire track and put himself possibly in contention to win this race after all. It seemed bleak for him. Now Bodine is making a bid to take the lap back from Dale. Side by side they go into the corner. They bump and touch. Bodine with the slight advantage. Earnhardt, however, outpowers him on the high side of the racetrack and maintains that lap.
And look at Bobby Allison.
Whoa!
Allison, that's a race for the lead. Allison looked to the inside while they were duking it back and forth. Allison said, hey, I'll take the lead. He was going to take advantage of that situation. I don't even think Bodine realized it.
So now we have two of the drivers eligible for the $100,000 bonus battling out for the lead. Jeff Bodine and Bobby Allison.
Now remember, Allison pitted. Bodine did not. Allison made a good pit move by coming in. It's given him a run to the front, and he's in the hunt for a $100,000 bonus, as well as Jeff Bodine. Allison, the winner of the Winston 500 earlier this year.
Jeff Bodine assessing the situation. Oh, and Bodine scrapes the wall, puts a Darlington stripe on the car coming out of the fourth turn.
And the concern that you have to have now is, did it bend the quarter panel down into the tire? These are super speedway cars with minimal clearance between the wheel wells and the tires themselves. Bodine will have to just feel the car out, and they'll watch the crew when they come by here. They'll check it to see if there's any smoke coming from the right side of the car.
Well, it doesn't appear to have hurt that car in any way. Here's a replay of Bodine getting too high coming out of four.
It just came right out. He was trying to give the car its head, and it just marooned off that wall up there.
But he didn't lose control of the car. He did put a Darlington stripe on it, but it is still the lead car. Bodine followed closely now by Bobby Allison. Bill Elliott is running in third, and Tim Richmond fourth, Buddy Baker in fifth. Can Bobby Allison pull off the win here? He all of a sudden has made himself known. We've kind of forgotten about him here in the last few laps.
But it's been a good move on Bobby Allison's pit crew that's put him in the hunt, and look who's right behind Allison. That's none other than Bill Elliott. We've got a three-car battle for the front position. See how quick the complexion can change?
This has just been an unbelievable afternoon of racing. We started the race, had a crash by Richard Petty, during which it started to rain. We closed down the track, and Buddy Baker just scraped the wall and drops off the pace. Too bad for Buddy Baker, who was running fifth.
Boy, you hate to see that. Baker hitting the outside wall, just a great run, but that's the way his season has been lately. It seems as if he runs well, but can't finish the last 30 or 40 laps of any event. He'll have to bring that car into pit road for service from Doug Reichert and his Crisco Oldsmobile crew.
It had been a great afternoon of competition for Buddy Baker, and it appears as if he's going behind the wall.
Let's take a look at what actually happened to Buddy Baker. There's Baker going into turn one. The car carries itself up. He looks all right there, but he's still getting close, too close there. He hits the wall in turn two, just scrapes it. Let's go down now to Dr. Jerry Punch, who's with the crew chief of Buddy Baker's machine.
Well, Doug Reichert, after a super run for you and your driver, Buddy Baker, it's all gone up. What happened?
Well, the motor gave away on us, unfortunately, but the way it was looking, we was in pretty good shape. We was able to pit there when the others didn't, because I think they was thinking it was going to rain it out, but the way they've been going, we've been running in the rain all day. So I figured we get the tires and maybe have a little bit of advantage. It worked out, but the motor didn't.
Well, Buddy Baker's had tough luck all year, and it won't be again today for him here at Darlington.
All right, on the racetrack, we continue to see Jeff Bodine leading. Bobby Allison there in second, and just a few car lengths behind Bobby Allison is Bill Elliott. The leader, Bodine, can win $100,000. Allison can also win $100,000. Bill Elliott cannot, but he is making a bid for second position. Bill, of course, is the individual who won $1 million here last year. He couldn't make the pass for second now. Let's see if he tries in turn one. No, he will not.
Well, Elliott took his sights and set them down there in turn 3, and let's see if he tries it again. Again, race traffic comes into play, but Elliott has backed out just a bit, or as Bobby Allison picked up the pace just a bit. Hard to tell. Let's see what happens in turn 3. Elliott, he's nowhere to be seen. Allison is trying to hunt down Jeff Bodine. He's got $100,000 on his mind.
Yeah, Elliott has really fallen off the pace and now is trying to stave off Tim Richmond's challenge for third position. Bodine and Allison already winners this year, and this race making them eligible for the $100,000 bonus.
Just a few moments ago, we alluded to the raindrops circuiting around the racetrack. Well, the rain doesn't seem to be too bad right now. The racetrack is in good shape, and here is Tim Richmond. Richmond is starting to close on Bill Elliott. Elliott showed some muscle, and then they all went atrophied on him, and he's just weak-kneed. Because look at this, Richmond is closed up to the rear deck lid of that Coors Thunderbird.
And Bill Elliott, seeing Tim Richmond closing in and challenging for that position, has caused Elliott to get back on the throttle, and now he is once again closing the interval between himself and Bobby Allison.
You know, it's been a long time for these drivers inside the race car and this tough old racetrack. It's a long time for them to be in here. They started this race at what, about 1 o'clock this afternoon, and we're working at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and they're still racing.
Well, let's go down to Dick Bergeron, who is with Gary Nelson on the Jeff Bodine team, and find out what's going on down there. Dick?
Well, there's quite a lot going down here with Gary Nelson. Gary, do you have enough fuel to go all the way?
Our calculations say we're going to run out on the last lap.
Are you going to come in and try to fill it up, or are you going to take a chance? What are you going to do?
Heck, you either win or you lose in this sport. We're going to try to win.
So you're not going to come in for fuel unless there's a caution. How about if there is a caution, will you come in?
We're watching the weather real close. If there's a caution and the track looks fairly dry, we're stopping for 4 new tires and fuel. NASCAR's doing all they can to get us to the finish line to complete the full race. We're going to do our best to be in front when that happens.
Well, it could be a $100,000 gallon of gas, that last gallon in the tank of Jeff Bodine.
Bobby Allison drops off the pace. Bill Elliott goes to second, Richmond to third, and Bobby Allison back to fourth as we have 20 laps to go. Boy, I'll tell you, we have been here a long time this afternoon, and we're all tired, but we can anticipate, I believe, a tremendous finish to this race.
Bob, it's nail-biting time. Jeff Bodine, from what Gary Nelson has just told us, is going to be running on fumes at best. If there is no caution, they are really playing it not only close to the vest, but close to the chest as well, because you cannot calculate that closely. We've had so many cautions. You could see the look on Gary Nelson's face. He was really torn. Should he bring him in or shouldn't he? And now he's got to look and see Elliott, Richmond, and Allison closing on Jeff Bodine. Why? Well, because Bodine's got to back out of the throttle a little bit to conserve fuel. This thing's going to be a Talladega-type finish, I'm sure, with just a few laps to go in this event.
Less than 20 laps to go in this one. And the pictures that you are seeing on your television screen really say a lot, because it is very dark here at Darlington. It really is. It's around 7:15 Eastern time. We have had a heavy cloud cover all weekend, but yet the visibility is good for these drivers.
All right, here's the calculations on Jeff Bodine. If he goes the distance without a pit stop, he'll have completed 96 laps around this 1.366 mile circuit. That's 131.136 miles. Generally, you can figure 100 to 110 miles to a tank of gas. That means he would have to average 5.96 miles per gallon. I'm not telling Gary Nelson anything he doesn't already know, but that's the reason why he's so concerned.
Well, it appears as if there is some movement in the Bodine pits. They are all moving out into the pit lane. At least they were momentarily.
It's going to be a gas and go, Bob.
So Gary Nelson's decision to go for it may not happen. Look at Bill Elliott closing in on Jeff Bodine. Elliott, I believe, is going to take the lead here without Bodine coming in for the stop. Let's see what happens on this lap. Elliott now right behind Bodine.
Let me tell you what I think's happening. Jeff Bodine has got a fuel light inside his car. The car may be missing or sputtering, something like that, and he may be radioing to Gary Nelson, I think I'm out of fuel. But look who's lurking in the shadows and who would appropriate the lead. That would be Bill Elliott. Elliott, who won 2 races this year at Michigan International Speedway, showing his muscle here in the Southern 500 in the late moments. Bodine stays out again, but here comes Elliott. He's right to the rear bumper.
He'll try to make a pass. No, he won't. Going into turn number 1. 353 laps completed. We've got less than 14 to go in the Southern 500. Now Elliott goes to the outside and passes for the lead.
He's out of fuel. It looks like he's out of fuel. Bodine is slowing. He's off. He's stopped. Look who's in the lead. Elliott.
He becomes our 9th different leader of the afternoon. Bill Elliott has not led this race, but he takes over the lead on 3:54. Let's go to Dr. Jerry Punch.
How about Dick Berggren? Dick Berggren's down at Jeff Bodine's pit. Dick.
Well, they are certainly ready to go here. They've got 2 cans of fuel. Gary Nelson is standing on top of the concrete wall. They are anxiously anticipating the arrival of Jeff Bodine. Every man on pit road is looking up, waiting for Bodine to come in, and here comes Jeff Bodine. This surely will be a gas and go situation. They're pulling the fender away from the right front tire, squirting ether into the engine. The engine is fired. Oh, it's stalled. The engine is stalled on Bodine's car. The crew is pushing it. There he goes. Bodine, gas and go. But that was the end of the lead for Jeff Bodine.
Now Bodine went 112 miles, which is fairly normal for a Winston Cup Grand National car. The other figures, 131 miles, that would have been incredible. A tough break for Bodine, but you heard Nelson say it. That's what racing's all about. You go for the win, you gamble.
And look at Bill Elliott go. Dale Earnhardt had passed Bodine and had gotten his lap back, but now Bill Elliott puts another lap on, or puts 1 lap on Dale Earnhardt. And Bill Elliott looks as if he could win his 2nd consecutive Southern 500. We'll be back with more of our coverage from Darlington International Raceway in a moment with Elliott leading. There are less now than 10 laps to go in the Southern 500.
Bob, who would have thought earlier today we'd go the full 367 lap distance this afternoon? Furthermore, who would have thought that Bill Elliott would be in the lead with the size lead that he's got right now with less than 10 laps to go in the Southern 500. Incredible.
Bill Elliott began this race back in 14th position with an average qualifying speed about 3 miles an hour off the pace. But it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And Bill Elliott has survived and endured and moved into the lead and now holds it with 358 laps completed.
You know, bouquets have got to go to NASCAR as well because they fought to make this race go the distance for the paying customer, and it's been well worth the wait.
If Bill Elliott should win this race, he'll be only the 2nd driver in 27 years to win outside of a top 10 starting position. Elliott, of course, started in 14th this afternoon.
And we talked about it and focused upon it with Dale Earnhardt, and lo and behold, Elliott's the one. But remember, early on in the race, Dan Elliott said, Bill says the car feels comfortable. That's been the way, and it might be the key to the victory.
There is the interval between first and second. Tim Richmond in car number 25, the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, runs in second spot. And behind Tim Richmond in third position is Bobby Allison. Fourth is Morgan Shepherd. Oh! And Elliott slides against the wall, hits the outer wall with the right side of the car in the rear end, but I don't think he's lost much momentum as he stays on the accelerator. But Tim Richmond is moving in. Unbelievable happenings here at the Southern 500. Bill Elliott is the leader now, but he's about to lose the lead to Tim Richmond at the start-finish line. Richmond moves into the lead. Bill Elliott slid against the wall up in the second corner last lap and is off the pace. Jeff Bodine was leading the Southern 500 when he had to come in for a fuel stop. He completely ran out of fuel. That gave the lead to Bill Elliott, but he has slid against the wall in turn number 2 and has lost the lead. Here it is.
Here's how it happened. High, wide, and handsome, but too far into the wall. Elliott leading all by himself, sparks flying from beneath the car, and this set up that spectacular pass by Tim Richmond that you saw just moments ago. But Richmond was out of shape when he made the pass as well. Now watch Tim Richmond as he tries to negotiate around Bill Elliott. He's all crossed up. Comes back down across the stripe. He's still got to get back in front of Bill Elliott. They touch.
Boy, they are just letting it all hang out in the closing laps of the 37th annual Southern 500. 5 laps to go, and Tim Richmond now is the leader. This will be 4 laps to go. Tim Richmond is the leader of this race. Bill Elliott hangs on to second. It's Bobby Allison in third, Morgan Shepherd in fourth, and Darrell Waltrip in fifth position. The other cars on the lead lap, Ricky Rudd, also Bobby Hillin Jr., Jeff Bodine, and Dale Earnhardt. Now Jeff Bodine passes the leader and gets his lap back.
Now Bodine, because he had to come in and take on that fuel, is not in the hunt for the lead. Unfortunate for Jeff Bodine, he gambled and lost, but at least he's at the tail end of the lead lap. But his teammate Tim Richmond is out front with just 3 laps to go. Elliott, wounded and badly wounded to say the least, is limping around in the second position. There's the battle for second. Bobby Allison's trying to snare the spot from Bill Elliott. Elliott has nothing to do with that. He is fighting back on the high side, and look at Earnhardt. Although he's a lap down, he's in the fracas.
Dale Earnhardt blistered a tire and had to come in. That's the reason he is a lap down. Now as Tim Richmond crosses the stripe, there will be just 2 more laps to go in the Southern 500. It's very dark here at Darlington. We are well past sunset, and with the heavy cloud cover, it's even more amazing that we can complete the entire distance of this race.
Don't give it to Tim Richmond yet. You saw how quick it could change when Bill Elliott was out front. This racetrack, that's why they call it the track too tough to tame, the Lady in Black. It can turn around and bite you at a moment's notice. Richmond knows that, and every time he comes down, he's going for the white flag, Bob.
1 more lap around this 1.366 mile track they call too tough to tame, the Lady in Black, Darlington International Raceway. What a day it has been, with rain, with accidents, with Jeff Bodine running out of fuel, with Bill Elliott losing control and scraping the wall, giving up the lead to Tim Richmond, who is the pole sitter. Here comes Tim Richmond for the checkered flag in the Southern 500 off of turn number 4. Here he is. Tim Richmond wins the Southern 500, the 37th annual running of this race. Bill Elliott finishes Bobby Allison finishes second. Bill Elliott third. Morgan Shepherd fourth. There's a celebration of the Harry Hyde crew.
Today, Tim Richmond's best finish in the Southern 500 was a second in 1984. He's bettered that this afternoon, though, hasn't he?
And he becomes the 8th driver to win this race from the pole position. Let's go down to Jerry Punch, who's with Harry Hyde, the crew chief.
Well, jubilation here in the Richmond pits, and Harry, it's got to be a great victory. Congratulations for you.
Oh, the Southern 500 is a great victory, and to anybody, and we're real proud. And Tim's just a true champion. He drove like a champion all day, and we're so happy for Hendricks Motorsports and Rick Hendricks and Folgers Coffee. I tell you what, this crew is never say die. They just keep on getting it, and Tim just gets in there and keeps pitching, and I don't know. We're just lucky to be associated with these people.
Well, I'll let you go on down to victory lane and congratulate your young driver. Congratulations again,
Thank you very much. This is one I've always wanted to win, and it's finally come true. I couldn't be happier.
Congratulations, Harry, from the booth, and to Tim Richmond, the driver of this car. And this is going to close the point standings. Tim Richmond, going into this race, was in third in the point standings, and he comes away with most points here this afternoon. He's maneuvering that Folgers-sponsored Chevrolet into victory lane. Moving into the Southern 500 victory lane area is Tim Richmond.
Boy, this one was worth the wait, Bob.
You can see how dark it is here at Darlington, but we are finally finished with this long, long race. There is Tim, who still has the helmet on. He's getting the steering wheel taken off. Still got to unbuckle and take off the helmet. But you can see the grin on his face after having won this event here today.
He's getting the congratulations of his mom through the car there. They're solidly behind his efforts here. You know, this guy came from IndyCar racing after winning the Rookie of the Year in the Indianapolis 500, and he has found a home here in Winston Cup competition.
About to step out of the car. And here he is, Tim Richmond, the winner of the Southern 500. Here's Dick Bergeron.
Tim Richmond, they say new teams aren't supposed to do it, but here you are with your 5th win, the Southern 500.
Well, yeah, it looked like Bill was going to get it there, and he went into one a little too hard and hit the fence, and we just, we just held on. We tried to play it as smart as we could, and I think being, Harry kept telling me, take it easy. It's raining a little bit, don't mess it up. And I was doing my best to catch Elliott, but had he not hit the wall, he'd have probably won. But
what happened? Why did he hit the wall? Could you tell, Tim?
Well, it was real slippery in that part of the track anyway. Earnhardt and I kept going in there all day. I never hit the back end of the car, but I probably should have, and he just went in there a little too hot, and I saw it. And he, punched the fence there, and it ruined his chances.
You were up and down in this race. There were times when you were led, and there were times when you were way in the back. What were your thoughts as the day went on? Were there disappointing moments, or did you always think that you were solid enough to have a shot at the end of the race?
Well, no, there were some times there that, I wasn't sure whether we were going to be able to pull it off or not. Jeff was real strong, and, Earnhardt, we knew he was going to be strong. We didn't see Darrell most of the day. But Harry won it. We had the fuel to go to the end. They didn't pit there then. I don't think the 5 car did, and a few other ones, and it paid off. Strategy went through.
Harry Hyde, his crew chief, has just hugged Tim Richmond. This is one very happy duo for sure. Timmy, when he held you out at the point where a lot of guys came in, did you begin to doubt Harry at all? Did you think that was the right move?
No, I didn't doubt him at all. I just, I was a little upset. I told him the car was so darn tight I couldn't drive it. And I asked him when we went back out, I said, did you take any wedge out of it? He said, no, we changed the stagger a little bit. And I was just trying my butt off just as hard as I could. And I kept about hitting that fence out there. And I was getting a little upset, but not bad. I was intense after going after the 9 car.
I was trying to...
Well, they picked up some points on the current point leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Hi, Sandy and Ashland. I got to say hi to my sister in Ashland, Sandy Welsh, and the Whales, Rib, and all them guys in Florida.
They picked up some points in this event for sure, and Bobby Allison had a fine finish as well, and he's with Jerry Punch.
Well, a fine finish indeed for Bobby Allison, who's climbing out and getting some of the debris and dirt off of him that he's grinded in here for 6.5 hours. Bobby, a super run for you. You almost had one.
Well, we got close. We worked hard to get the car moved up to the front of the pack, and we kept working. Bobby Hudson and the crew kept working, trying to get the chassis to stick, and we they finally discovered something. Bobby finally discovered something late in the race that was helping, and so we saved it for the last pit stop and pulled it off, and it really helped us. Tim got by us, and you know, those other guys were ahead, but there was a little bad luck went on out there, and we weren't the recipients of it this time.
How about some of the wall tapping out there? I know you said you saw Jeff Bodine hit the wall.
Yeah, Jeff just got out of shape off of 4. You know, he just lost it and got in the wall, and it caused him to bust a tire, and it was unfortunate for him because he had to race 1. He was far enough ahead of everybody that there really was no problem.
Well, the 5-time Southern 500 champion Bobby Allison gets a cold drink. He finishes second here today.
And our winner's circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagles. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. What a tremendous afternoon of racing we have seen here, with Tim Richmond finally emerging as the winner, Allison second, Bill Elliott third, Morgan Shepherd fourth, Darrell Waltrip fifth. Back in just a moment. We take a look at the top 10 finishers in the Southern 500. It's very late on a Sunday evening in Darlington, South Carolina. It has been some kind of a weekend here, with yesterday's Grand National race being stopped because of rain. We had a 2-hour and 15-minute rain delay in this one, but when all was said and done, this was one of the most exciting Winston Cup races ever, I think, Jack.
Bob, every time they turn a page for the Southern 500 record book, somebody pens in a new entry. Last year it was $1 Million Bill. This year, with everything that happened as we look at the top 10 finishers, with Richmond winning it and the way he won it, and the fact that he won it for Harry Hyde, the first time that Hyde's ever been victorious in all the years that he's been here. It just makes it spectacular. It's just really a great Southern 500.
Well, Tim Richmond gained 33 points on Dale Earnhardt in the battle for the Winston Cup. Tim Richmond still in third place, 132 points behind. Darrell Waltrip's 113 points behind Dale Earnhardt. Promotional fee has been paid for by Eastman Kodak Company. Eastman Kodak is the official film and photographic paper of NASCAR. We thank you for joining us, and for the service of Dick Berggren and Jerry Punch in the pit area, and by Jack Arute for his comments from the broadcast booth. Once again, the winner of the Southern 500 at Darlington, South Carolina is Tim Richmond. Thanks for joining us, Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.